maybe... Huh. Yeah, I'm not seeing an email address. Maybe I'm wondering if I looked it up. You try one more thing, guys. Let's look up I'm pretty sure manetcrypto.com is not.
You're 6 minutes away from a live episode of Free Talk Live. Listen live at freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. Police have charged a 42-year-old man with attempted homicide after the husband of Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, was attacked by an intruder in the family's San Francisco home. Paul Pelosi is expected to make a full recovery, but was assaulted with a hammer shortly after 2 a.m. by a man demanding to know the whereabouts of his wife. The Speaker was in Washington at the time of the break-in. San Francisco Police Chief Bill Scott says officers witnessed the attack.
Our officers observed Mr. Pelosi and the suspect both holding a hammer. The suspect pulled the hammer away from Mr. Pelosi and violently assaulted him with it. Our officers immediately tackled the suspect, disarmed him.
There are reports the alleged assailant posted videos on social media questioning the outcome of the 2020 presidential election in the United States and criticizing the congressional investigation into last year's deadly assault on Capitol Hill by Donald Trump's conspiracy theory-believing supporters. In other news, Elon Musk, now the owner of Twitter, says no suspended accounts on the platform will be reinstated ahead of a meeting of a new Content Moderation Council. He said on Twitter that the group will hold widely diverse viewpoints, although he provided no further details. The $44 billion acquisition of the platform on Thursday was followed by the immediate termination of key executives, including the legal officer who approved the suspension of Donald Trump's account. ExxonMobil's third quarter profits smashed expectations and hit nearly $20 billion net. That's the highest profit in the oil company's 150-year history. From FSN's bureau in Austin, Texas, Tony Waterman with more.
Exxon's net profits were nearly triple what they were last year and came despite crude prices dipping in Q3. The company says higher natural gas prices helped to offset the losses, as did record refining volumes and rigorous cost control. But for the second straight quarter, Exxon didn't highlight its record gains, perhaps not wanting to draw the ire of the public already struggling with high inflation.
Jerry Lee Lewis has died at the age of 87.
You shake my nerves and you rattle my brain.
In 1956, he walked into a Memphis recording studio and asked for an audition, becoming an overnight sensation. His marriage to a 13-year-old cousin caused scandal in the 60s. By the time he died, he'd been married 7 times and had a love of guns, alcohol, drugs and violence. But he continued playing and touring well into his 80s, and Elton John called him today groundbreaking and exciting, a star who pulverized the piano. Jerry Lee Lewis dead at 87. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. With just over a week to go before the COP27 climate change conference gets underway in Egypt, the UN is warning the world that there is no credible pathway to keeping global warming below the 1.5 degrees Celsius rise that is considered a key threshold. In a new report, the United Nations deemed the actions of Global School of Economics is one of its authors.
In highland areas of the Americas and African countries, we're finding that people already suffering from a high burden of disease now need to be concerned about the fact that these areas are susceptible to malaria. If you swim in the northeast regions off the coast of northeast the United States or in the Baltic areas, because of warming, these are areas that are now susceptible to cholera. The impact on food security is particularly concerning. And I think we've seen already this year the impact of whether it's Ukraine being invaded, whether it's cholera, or whether it's harvest shocks in the past. Each of these are having really worrying impacts on health and on food security and nutrition.
And the UN Secretary General said on Thursday the world must refocus its attention on climate change or face catastrophe. The main news again. Police have charged a 42-year-old man with attempted homicide after the husband of Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, was attacked by an intruder in the family's San Francisco home. ExxonMobil made nearly $20 billion profit in the third quarter, the highest number in the oil company's 150-year history. And Great Balls of Fire singer Jerry Lee Lewis has died at the age of 87. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
You are nothing more than the reflection of a grim, pitiless world, and this is The Onion Week in Review. Following the Supreme Court's ruling on same-sex marriage this week, overjoyed gay couples in Florida rushed out of their homes to have their marriages denied to them. Homosexual couples throughout the southern state told reporters they were ecstatic over the landmark decision supporting gay rights and said they couldn't wait to wait in line and have their requests to be wed rejected by their home state. And in science news, scientists probably discovered a frog or something. They're always doing that sort of shit. In other news, an 8-year-old boy surprises his Marine father during a firefight in Afghanistan. Johnny Depp is now physically unable to walk unless whimsically teeter-tottering across a rolling log, wobbly plank, or swaying beam. And Silvio Berlusconi is transferred to a steamy, all-female penitentiary. If you're seeking a celebrity interview, stay away from that bastard Tobey Maguire, who apparently can't even pick up a phone to say he has a schedule conflict and won't be able to make it into the studio. For more, keep checking theonion.com.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. Welcome to the program. Phones are open here. Should you wish to join us, you can bring up anything you want. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you tonight, you've got Ian.
And Chris.
Of course, the phones are open. That's what we do here on Free Talk Live. And, of course, the big news... It's got to be Elon Musk taking over Twitter.
I heard about this.
Even you heard about this.
I did. I haven't had a chance to read the news.
Because, you were just telling me you didn't read any of the
almost.
News.
I read a little bit, but not much. But I heard about the Elon Musk thing, which is crazy.
Well, and you're a big advocate, Chris, of decentralization, of self-hosting things. So... I'm sure that you're not even in any way really. You don't think this is going to change anything, right?
Oh no. I remain on the same stance I had yesteryear, and as I do currently. And the more decentralization we have, the better. You're just going to end up flipping from one side to the other instead of maybe the left having, doing the censorship. Now it's going to be the right that's doing the censorship.
Elon Musk isn't even particularly right necessarily. He seems to be this kind of hodgepodge of whatever.
He is.
I mean, I don't know how you would describe him. On some instances, he seems like he's sort of right-leaning. On others, like I think he supports universal basic income, so he's kind of left-leaning on that. And he's come right out and he's said that the government is a monopoly on violence. I mean, he has said things that sound very libertarian.
And it's interesting because aren't all his ventures? I could be mistaken about this. But aren't they all government funding?
I don't know if all of them are. Like Twitter probably
or
isn't,
most of them, or something like that. Like his financial
Tesla is
his financial stuff is all right. I'm sure Tesla is basically funded by the government money. I mean, it's all government handouts to big corporations. So I mean, it is and it's kind of interesting because it's like I wouldn't tell somebody not to take something that, because the money's already being stolen from you. But in this case,
you've taken government contracts, right?
Sure,
for your business.
But I think it's those are probably a little bit different. And I'm not going out there and advocating, or
you're not getting a handout,
paying somebody
product.
to go to Congress critters and lobby them for new programs so that I can get a government contract. The only time I've ever gotten a government contract is when the government has come to me and they're like, we want to buy your stuff, and I'm like, all right, I'll jump through some of the hoops in order to get this this money.
You're not getting subsidies. You're not getting handouts.
Right. And certainly the government's taken more from me and my company than I'll ever be able to get back in whatever they're purchasing. So.
Right. Yeah, Musk seems to be this sort of enigmatic character. I mean, obviously he's a big deal because he's the world's richest man at this moment. People obviously pay attention to what he does. He's entertaining too. Like he's so rich, he doesn't care, right? Like kind of like how Kanye West or Ye has recently been just saying whatever it is he wants to say and losing contracts with companies like Adidas and other mega corporations as a result of that. Musk is kind of the same way. He'll say whatever he wants and do whatever he wants, and you know what? Good for him for that. I mean, you shouldn't have to be super wealthy to take those positions, but certainly having $1 billion makes it easier than if you don't. So he is an interesting character to watch. And so while I'm with you on this, Chris, as far as long-term, short-term, whatever, Twitter is still going to be the centralized beast. It is still going to have very controlling policies. In fact, Musk has already announced that they are not going to be unrestricting anyone's accounts until they can have some sort of a special meeting. He's going to put together, he says, some kind of a group of governors or whatever the term is. I'll see if I can pull up his actual tweet about it. But he is going to form a content moderation council with what he says will be widely diverse viewpoints. No major content decisions or account reinstatements will happen before that council convenes. So if you've been waiting for Donald Trump to be unlocked on Twitter, apparently that is not going to happen until at the very soonest, whenever this council that he's talking about comes to pass. So, again, the central control is alive and well at Twitter, and I don't think people should get too excited thinking that Twitter is going to all of a sudden become a free-for-all.
No, what this is humorous. It's humorous looking at it from the outside, I think. Because what it is and again, I'm just going to use the left and right as an example. I don't really understand any of or follow any of the politics here, but it's basically, to me, it looks like the left fighting the right, and it's like when you don't support freedom, this is what happens. It just goes back and forth between two different sides, and you get one set of censorship or the other set of censorship, rather than just accepting that if you support free speech and you do it blindly, well, then all of a sudden everybody gets their way.
Now, there was an interesting detail that came out during what was going to be a trial. Like, it was going to be a civil trial between Twitter and Elon Musk because, as you may know, Elon Musk had said he wanted to back out of the deal because Twitter wasn't being honest about the number of bots that were on the platform. And, when he made the offer for the platform, he made it presuming that there were no more than 5% bots, as Twitter had said. And then,
that was in the pre-agreement, right?
As I understand it. I mean, I didn't read it, right? So, I don't know. But yeah, that was why Elon was trying to back out. So Twitter said, well, you can't back out now. We're going to sue you and force you to buy our company. And so in the process of this lawsuit, rolling forward, Elon had to turn over all his text messages that he had sent and received. And so there was actually a conversation in between him and the previous CEO of Twitter, Jack Dorsey, who had resigned earlier this year. Before Elon put his offer in, Dorsey had resigned from that position. But prior to that happening, they had a conversation where Dorsey indicated that he was disappointed that Twitter had become this sort of centralized entity. He had this vision, apparently, that he wanted to see Twitter be this decentralized social media thing. I don't know what exactly he had in mind there.
That would be super interesting if he actually, if he actually meant it the way we would say.
Yeah,
uses the term.
And to his credit, he did come out with something recently, and I only had a chance to kind of glance at it last night, something that he's calling Web 5, which will be a decentralized form of identity. And it's very interesting, and I'll have to have you take a look at it off the air and see what you think of it just at a glance. But it looked really interesting, like the idea of you would have your own essentially digital identity that no one would control except for you. It would interface with decentralized servers all over the place or whatever, and no one could block you or whatever. And so it was a very kind of interesting pitch on this concept. So if Twitter were to somehow become something like that, that would be amazing. I wouldn't get my hopes up in any way, shape, or form. I mean, this beast is what it is, and the odds that it's going to go under any kind of significant change beyond some changing over of maybe some policies or changing out some of the people that are involved. And to that end, Musk has been making headlines for immediately firing several top executives, according to FoxNews.com. He had said before he took over the company that he might be eliminating 75% of the company's workforce.
That's got to be a ton of people. Do we have any idea what the population of?
Several thousand.
Okay.
So it would be down to like a couple thousand or something like that. So it was like 8,000 or something large.
I wonder.
So he'd be chopping it back.
I'm wondering what those employees like. I mean, there must be some critical set of employees. I wonder what they are like.
Sure.
What numbers those are, and then how do you fire people who are critical to the operation? I mean.
Well, I think he's suggesting that there's a lot of non-critical people at Twitter, and the company doesn't make any money and has never made apparently a profit in all the time that it's been around. So he started at the top, though. He fired the CEO, Parag Agrawal. The CFO and the head of legal policy and safety were all fired after Musk had accused them of misleading him and investors over the number of fake accounts on the platform. A source with knowledge on the matter told Fox Business. Editor-in-chief at the Federalist, Molly Hemingway, described the firings as, quote, an excellent start, unquote, to Musk's tenure in a tweet. Co-host of Breaking Point's Sagar Anteji posted emoji hands waving bye while retweeting a post of his from April where he had written that Vijaya Gadde, the top censorship advocate at Twitter, who famously gaslit the world on Joe Rogan's podcast and censored the Hunter Biden laptop story, is very upset about the Elon Musk takeover. So he fired the woman. He fired the top censor, basically, at Twitter. So again, an interesting start to the latest drama at Twitter.
I like the idea of getting rid of the safety department.
We'll continue.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Phones are open, and you can join us here. We're talking about the takeover of Twitter by Elon Musk. It happened late yesterday when he fired several executives, including their head of censorship, an attorney. She is gone. That woman's name, Vijaya Gadde. She is out. Also, CEO Parag Agrawal, the CFO, Ned Siegel. And
was that her actual title?
Her title was Head of Legal Policy, Trust, and Safety.
Yeah, okay. Safety is the key word that I would have expected them to use, but that would have been really funny if they had actually called her head of censorship,
the top censor, the censorship czar or something like that.
Yeah.
So if you want to comment on it, you're welcome to join us here. And by the way, Free Talk Live is brought to you by Freedom's Phoenix. If you're looking for all news, economic, government overreach, insane government spending, and more, you can get today's headlines all in one place and from a fresh libertarian perspective at freedomsphoenix.com. So head over there. It's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. So, we are going to take all this Elon Musk stuff with a huge grain of salt here on Free Talk Live and remind you that we actually have our own social media website onto which you can. Oh, wait, I noticed nobody's here. Nobody. Are you
Nobody's
there?
here.
Oh, excellent. I didn't see you come in.
Welcome back.
That was my fault.
Yeah, I've actually been on for since before the last break.
Oh, excellent. Well, good to finally have you. I hope you weren't talking.
I was wondering if you were coming on because I had heard that you were, and then you weren't here, and
nobody's here. So we're talking
good to
about
have you back.
So you heard us talking about the Elon Musk situation. I imagine you've been watching it. You have an account on Twitter these days now that you're off of your bail restrictions. What are your?
Oh, I've got a few of them.
Yeah. So so what are your initial impressions of the takeover now that he's fired some of the executives?
I think that the tone of Twitter will change. I think that a lot of leftists will end up going elsewhere because all of a sudden they won't be able to bully everybody else on the platform.
Where do you think they're going to go, though?
I don't know. Actually, Mastodon is a strong possibility. Because Mastodon has a very strong leftist element in the development area, so they've got a high affinity. I'm sure there are Mastodon servers where nobody to the right of Che Guevara is invited.
Sure, and that's probably true. I mean, definitely the Mastodon programmers are sort of notoriously leftist. They're based out of, I think, like France and Germany or something like that. And so if you want to have more freedom on Mastodon, you need to go to the independent servers. You don't want to use the official Mastodon server.
Yeah, for sure.
But,
and are they really, I think going independent is going to be the final issue or the final answer to the issue of social media. We had it a lot better when we were using ICQ and Jabber and a lot
certainly
of the
Jabber.
more
Certainly Jabber, but I don't know about ICQ.
Well, I mean, ICQ worked really well for me for quite a long time.
But it certainly wasn't decentralized. It was never decentralized.
It was never decentralized, but they had something that made it polycentric, which is there were a lot of clients that could talk to ICQ, but could also talk other flavors of instant messenger. So basically, if you had one of these, you didn't care what instant messenger somebody was using. And I really think that there's two areas where that's going to be the answer, or something similar to that is going to be the answer with social media. The first is the algorithm. Okay, basically, if somebody was storing tweets and allowing people to just have their own algorithms go through those tweets and deliver whatever it thinks its owner might think is useful, rather than having somebody else directing what you see.
Wait a minute. Are you talking about decentralized self-censorship?
I'm talking about decentralized. It's not a matter of censorship. It's a matter of you can't see everything at the same time. There are millions of messages going across Twitter. So a decision has to be made.
Okay.
Every time you see a tweet, somebody made the decision that that's the next tweet you should see.
You're saying about selectively filtering content
have your
that you want to see.
interest at heart.
Well, now I'll give Twitter a little bit of credit. Having been on some of these major platforms, I haven't used Facebook in 4 years, 5 years, something like that at this point, which I don't miss it. But one of the frustrations I had with Facebook was what you're talking about, where there's this algorithm that decides what you see and what you don't. And there's nothing you can do about that. It doesn't matter. You told Twitter you like a thing, or you were wanting to follow a person and you never see that person. But on Twitter, I didn't get that feeling. I always got the feeling like I am seeing every post chronologically that people are making.
And at one time, I think you were. And that's why it was so good, because anything could happen. But things changed. I went for 3 weeks seeing nothing but Democratic Party influencers, most of whom I believe were actually bots. But and a lot of people see a lot of them. There's JoJo somebody, Lakota Man.
Now hold on. These are people you are not following. These are people you are not personally following, but it's showing you them anyway.
These are people that I am not following, where I would see a message from them every 10 minutes. They would completely dominate the top of my feed for no apparent reason.
One of the things I've noticed...
The only way I could finally get rid of, I had to block them all.
One of the things I noticed about Twitter is, besides showing me the people I follow, it also will show me posts from people who that are liked by people who I follow. So even if I don't follow a certain person, because someone I do follow follows them, I might see their stuff. And that could be where the algorithm is coming in.
The thing is, it was all very left-centric content, but not just that. It was formulaic. Something like 30% of the posts across all of these people ended with the words, "Are you with me?" Basically, they're ads. Did you see that episode of South Park?
I don't know.
They're ads.
All right, no, but tell me the truth. You're just secretly a leftist, and you're getting outed here, right?
No, he was a former.
I've got a leftist orientation on some things. Like, I don't want anybody to be poor. I don't think they should be. The problem is the traditional means of leftists have completely failed to deliver on any of what they were trying to do.
Indeed. Stand by. We're going to continue here in moments. And, of course, your calls and thoughts are welcome on the Twitter takeover by Elon Musk. It's Free Talk Live.
Excuse me, is this where I get a license to start a new business?
I wouldn't be hasty. You have to get a license to go out of business, too, you know.
Oh, well, look, I've invented this little anti-gravity machine, see?
Oh, is that why you're walking 2 inches above the floor?
Oh, yes, it's very comfortable. It saves on shoe leather.
Yeah, well, you have to fill out these forms and report to the Human Services Department of Manpower Orientation and register with the Fair Employment Practice Commission, the Wage and Hour Division of the Employment Standards Administration, the State Sales and Income Tax Division, the Internal Revenue Service, and the Social Security Administration of the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, and, of course, OSHA.
OSHA? I thought that was a little town in Wisconsin.
You'll find out. Say, floating around like that could be dangerous. Have you checked with the Consumer Product Safety Commission?
Well, not yet.
Come to think of it, you actually are flying, aren't you? Look, you need to go over to the Federal Aviation Administration and the Transportation...
It's very hard to get anything done these days if you're in business, but free enterprise built this country. Think what could happen if we don't keep it free. A public service of this station and the Center for the Defense of Free Enterprise, Bellevue, Washington.
Besides, we just can't have people floating about unregulated, you know.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. Police have charged a 42-year-old man with attempted homicide after the husband of Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, was attacked by an intruder in the family's San Francisco home. Paul Pelosi is expected to make a full recovery, but was assaulted with a hammer shortly after 2 a.m. by a man demanding to know the whereabouts of his wife. The Speaker was in Washington at the time of the break-in. San Francisco Police Chief Bill Scott says officers witnessed the attack.
Our officers observed Mr. Pelosi and the suspect both holding a hammer. The suspect pulled the hammer away from Mr. Pelosi and violently assaulted him with it. Our officers immediately tackled the suspect, disarmed him.
There are reports the alleged assailant posted videos on social media questioning the outcome of the 2020 presidential election in the United States and criticizing the congressional investigation into last year's deadly assault on Capitol Hill by Donald Trump's conspiracy theory-believing supporters. In other news, Elon Musk, now the owner of Twitter, says no suspended accounts on the platform will be reinstated ahead of a meeting of a new Content Moderation Council. He said on Twitter that the group will hold widely diverse viewpoints, although he provided no further details. The $44 billion acquisition of the platform on Thursday was followed by the immediate termination of key executives, including the legal officer who approved the suspension of Donald Trump's account. ExxonMobil's third quarter profits smashed expectations and hit nearly $20 billion net. That's the highest profit in the oil company's 150-year history. From FSN's bureau in Austin, Texas, Tony Waterman with more.
Exxon's net profits were nearly triple what they were last year and came despite crude prices dipping in Q3. The company says higher natural gas prices helped to offset the losses, as did record refining volumes and rigorous cost control. But for the second straight quarter, Exxon didn't highlight its record gains, perhaps not wanting to draw the ire of the public already struggling with high inflation.
Jerry Lee Lewis has died at the age of 87.
You shake my nerves and you rattle my brain.
In 1956, he walked into a Memphis recording studio and asked for an audition, becoming an overnight sensation. His marriage to a 13-year-old cousin caused scandal in the 60s. By the time he died, he'd been married 7 times and had a love of guns, alcohol, drugs, and violence. But he continued playing and touring well into his 80s, and Elton John called him today groundbreaking and exciting, a star who pulverized the piano. Jerry Lee Lewis dead at 87. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. You're welcome to weigh in on Twitter. Elon Musk has officially closed the deal as of sometime yesterday. He had gone in to the Twitter headquarters, was getting photographed at talking to employees there, and then he started firing people, including the CEO, the CFO, their top censor,
I hear he walked in with a sink.
Yeah, he did. And then he posted to Elon Musk's at Twitter, let that sink in. So it was all for the purpose of making a joke.
Oh, that's what it was
apparently.
about. So when I originally heard that, I had no idea what it was about, and it just sounded funny.
It is funny.
But I didn't quite see where it was what was it? Like, what was the joke?
He's
right?
got a sense of humor. There's no doubt about it. But by the way, I do want to tell you something that's not very funny. That is, if you've worked or lived at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988, and you've suffered from cancer or potentially Parkinson's disease or another serious health issue, you might be entitled to compensation. So I'm going to give you a phone number. You'll need to call this number and find out if you or a loved one are eligible. There were contaminants in the drinking water during those years, and they could have caused some serious problems. The number is 888-918-1037. There might be some deadlines involved, so don't wait to call and find out. 888-918-1037. If you were at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and you've had a serious health issue, money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. We have Ian, Chris, and Nobody here on Free Talk Live tonight. We're talking about the Twitter takeover. He immediately basically fired the CEO. He fired their head of censorship, Vijaya Gadde, who's the top censorship advocate at Twitter, who basically censored the Hunter Biden laptop story and then tried to cover for it on the Joe Rogan podcast. She is gone. And already the complaining, the caterwauling online has begun. Many people tweeting their upset over Elon Musk taking over Twitter. And I don't think you're going to see a giant exodus from Twitter. I think that this is going to be the same level of action that we saw like when Trump won election in 2016, and there were all these leftists who were screaming about how they were going to leave the United States and move to Canada.
Yeah, I suspect you're probably right. It's sad. Nobody ever does any. It's like
they don't do what they say they're going to do.
Like, I mean, I get that. Like, okay, leaving the United States is a pretty big deal, but
sure, it's a lot easier to leave a website than it is to physically leave a country.
But I suspect they're not. I suspect you're right. They're probably all these people who say they're going to leave Twitter. If they're, I don't even know if there are people saying that, but if they are,
they're saying it. Sure,
I bet you most of them don't leave.
No, that's how I feel about this. I think that what you're going to see is people are just going to learn how to use the block button. They're going to learn how to ignore the accounts that they say are problematic, and they're going to just keep on keeping on because they already have their audience. That's the thing that these big platforms have that grab people so effectively. I remember the big excuse for not leaving Facebook was, well, that's where everyone is. Now we know that's not true, and we know that more people have been leaving Facebook over the years, so certainly everyone is not on Facebook. But if you've got a few thousand, or in some of these influencers' cases, tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of followers, what are the odds that those people are just going to walk up and walk away from that just because they're mad about the new owner?
There's a solution to that as well, and just as I said that the solution to the algorithm issue is to move it off of Twitter so you can decentralize it so you can choose your own algorithms that fit your taste. The other thing that we can do with that kind of a technology, let's say that that it has the ability to store a list of all your social media accounts and pass those out to people that you're interacting with who also use the system. Then you get thrown off Facebook, but it's okay because the other users of the system who send you messages, those messages catch up with you on Twitter, on Reddit, by SMS, by any means necessary. And so you can move, and when you make a post, you make it from this client, and your post goes to Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and pretty much any place that it can get accepted where you have.
So you're talking about like a social media aggregator that is networked with other people on that piece of software?
Right. So each of the social media providers becomes just another one. and because you're sending your data out via many pipes, and you've got a direct back channel to talk to people, even if everybody throws you out.
I will say that Mastodon has grown over the past couple of years. I do feel like there's a lot more people on it today,
and they're going to poach some people out of this. There's no doubt. And they should.
I don't want to like write. I don't want people to write off Mastodon as if it's not a thing. It is. There's a lot of people using it. It's just you have to understand that it's a small number by comparison, and I don't think even a small number of people leaving not Telegram, leaving Twitter are going to have a larger impact on something like Mastodon. And so we've seen that, I think, over the years here, over the past couple of years. So it's grown. And for those who aren't aware, Mastodon actually goes back, quite a while at this point. It used to go under another name, and can't think of the name on the top of my head, but before it was Mastodon, it was called something else. So it's been developing. It's actually based on a web standard now. So
what they really need is adapters so that you can apply that same web standard to Twitter. Basically, you write it so that it talks Twitter's proprietary protocol on one end, and it talks Mastodon on the other end. And then you can just plug your group into the Mastodon network.
Yeah.
And just like I said, everything you post to Mastodon goes to Twitter.
That would be great.
Isn't that already being done? Isn't Free Talk Live set up that way?
Yeah, but we're using a third-party tool.
IFTTT has a good situation, but it's not open source and it's not under your control.
Correct.
And the
that's true.
And unfortunately, the guy who designed the interface graduated from a software design school for the criminally insane.
Yeah, IFTTT, for listeners that don't know, it stands for If This Then That. And it is a clunky system that you have to pay for if you really want it to perform for you. And to be fair, I think I only pay $2 a month for it, so it's not a crazy amount of money. But and it is very handy for what it does. But it suffers from the problems that nobody is saying here, in that some company's running this thing, and it could go away tomorrow. It could disappear. They could ban you.
I suspect it seems very unlikely that Twitter. And maybe I'm wrong, but are there API? Well, maybe there must be APIs for Twitter.
Yeah,
because,
of course there are. Yeah.
Because I've
written bots for
it's already integrating with all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, when I post on Mastodon, on our Mastodon, which we have ours at social.freetalklive.com, it automatically IFTTT automatically takes that content and puts it on Twitter.
So I guess the question is it's a matter of somebody writing an application that interacts with Twitter. Does Twitter have like API keys? Do you have to have some sort of like? It doesn't just let anybody access it, I presume.
They use that Microsoft protocol that a lot of people use. GitHub uses it too. I'm
without getting too far out into the weeds here. I feel like we're getting a little bit. We're getting a little bit out there. This is a fine idea.
I've been out there for years.
Yes, you have.
There have been aggregator programs that have existed before. They almost always charge people for usage, and that's understandable because, as I understand it, you always have to keep up with the Joneses with this, right? So every time Facebook changes its programming, they're going to break something, and they may be breaking things on purpose, right? Just because they don't like it.
Yeah, it's not a standard.
When you use somebody else's system to interface with theirs, they want you on their site so they can feed you their advertising, right? So they're constantly changing the way that stuff works, and so if you're not updating it every month or quarter or something like that, S is going to break. And then you're going to have angry users, so you really would have to keep up on your game with this. There's more coming up here about the Twitter takeover by Elon Musk. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world. So I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here. And I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing. To be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. It is Chris and Ian and Nobody here in the studio. You can join us and bring up anything that you want. We're talking about the takeover of Twitter by Elon Musk, instantly firing some of the top executives. And there was apparently a couple people standing outside of the San Francisco Twitter headquarters today pretending to be fired employees, but they weren't actually fired employees. They were just there to troll the media into thinking that they were fired employees. They had like cardboard boxes that they were holding as though they just cleared out their desk. They were claiming that they were part of the entire team of data engineers that had been fired, but then the CNBC reporter who actually reported that, Deirdre Bosa, then posted later on that even though they had reported that these people were on that team, they have been unable to verify that that was true. And now Elon Musk has even tweeted about them and laughed, suggesting that this indeed was some sort of a put-on, whether Musk was behind it or they were just two independent comedians who decided they were gonna, just troll the media. I don't know.
Sounds orchestrated just because of the whole sync thing and the politics of this all.
It could be. It was,
but it's still funny either way.
It's pretty funny stuff. So we were just talking about whether or not the leftists who are really angry about Elon Musk's takeover, even though he supports things like universal basic income. I mean, he doesn't seem to be one way or another politically. He's just his own thing. It appears.
Can't have your own opinion.
But they are upset because their guys are no longer in charge. And Tech Dirt writer-editor, this is according to FoxNews.com, Mike Masnick said about the woman who was fired yesterday, their head censor. He said about her, "People do not realize how much Vijaya did for free speech. Twitter is less of a free speech platform without her." Another Uprocks writer, Mike Redmond, wrote, "I don't think any of us are prepared for how quickly this whole site is about to go down. It's a miracle flames aren't shooting out of it already." And then a writer.
I'll tell you what, apparently I didn't understand what free speech meant, and now that they've straightened me out on what those words mean, I don't want it.
Yeah. It seems like the left-wing extremists have taken over the left-wing camp. Mm-hmm. That's what it feels like, sometimes.
Well, that tends to happen to whatever party is in power. The more powerful they become, the more strident their extremists become.
Makes sense. Reporter for NBC News' disinformation reporter Ben Collins says, quote, "I would be so happy if I'm wrong, but all the red lights are flashing here," he said. Controversial tech columnist Taylor Lawrence tweeted, quote, "It's like the gates of hell opened on this site tonight." Unquote.
Now,
Come on.
Taylor Lawrence is actually a fine journalist, so long as you understand the code to her work, which is that anything she writes or says is false.
I've never read anything that she has written. I know she caused some sort of controversy recently. I don't even remember what it was about, but her name became really big all of a sudden.
She got doxxed. Now, this is a Washington Post reporter, so people know where to find her. But she got doxxed, cried on TV about it, and then went back to doxing people.
So she could dish it out, but she can't take it, is what you're saying.
Exactly, and she's over the top victim crazy when she gets any flashback. If somebody doesn't like her work, that's like violence for her.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of just freaking out over this takeover is pretty ridiculous and entertaining. I don't think the gates of hell have opened on Twitter. It's still the same website. It's still the same people tweeting
years ago
as before. Liberal academic and journalism professor Jeff Jarvis's reaction upon hearing the news was, quote, "The sun is dark." Earlier in the day, he had warned, quote, "This is an emergency. Twitter is to be taken over."
Is this a Dark Brandon quote he was making?
I don't know.
Because Hunter is definitely pretty dark.
"This is an emergency," he said earlier in the day. "Twitter is to be taken over by the evil Sith Lord." Unquote. Jarvis is no stranger to Twitter hyperbole. In April, when Musk's plans to acquire it became part of the news cycle, he tweeted, quote, "Today on Twitter feels like the last evening in a Berlin nightclub at the twilight of Weimar, Germany." Unquote. Little hyperbolic, maybe?
They say that only the Sith talk in absolutes, but that can't possibly be true because it's an absolute statement.
Indeed.
The opposite side of the same party is what it feels like to me.
Yeah, I don't even.
Yeah, I mean, to me, they're just it's like the difference between Russia and the Ukraine. They're slightly different flavors of fascism.
Tyranny. Yeah, that's true. So I mean, I could go on here, but yeah, it's just to give you an idea. We gave you an idea of what some of these people are saying. They are just all kinds of upset about this, but I think the dust is going to settle. And I think after the dust settles, you're going to see a very minimal exodus, if any at all. A lot of these people that are making a big to-do about it, they're going to get new followers, right? Because they're going to get passed around. Their tweets are going to get shared, and all the outrage is going to get ginned up.
Passed around in a long time.
You have to do that off the radio.
I didn't do it.
Yeah. So, I don't know. That's pretty much that story. In other news, the big question, of course, is Donald Trump. Is he coming back? will not only will they unban Donald Trump for the first time in more than 2 years at this point, or just about 2 years.
It's been a while.
Yeah. Not only will they, the question is, will they unban him? I think they probably will, because it'll be big headlines, and why not? Who's it going to hurt?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like he's going to be unbanned. I mean, how do you talk about all the censorship and then like take it over and make a big stink of it, and then like not unban Donald Trump?
Yeah, and leave the most probably visibly censored person censored. So I think that's likely, but really the ultimate question is, if they do unban Donald Trump, will he come back to the platform?
He will.
He has already said early this year that he would not come back because now he has his own platform.
I don't believe him.
But he doesn't have the reach on his own platform that
I don't
he
believe
does
him for one moment that he won't
Twitter.
come back.
So, I mean, we know Donald Trump wants exposure more than anything else. He wants attention more than anything else. So we will see about that. Meanwhile,
and he wants attention from people he can annoy.
Mm-hmm.
And the people that he annoys won't go on Twitter, so it doesn't do him any good.
You mean Truth Social?
Or they won't go on Truth Social,
Yeah.
so it doesn't do him any good to truth people who will never hear him. Is that what they call it?
Truthing. Yeah, I think they call it truthing.
They call it truthing.
Yeah.
Oh, God, they've finally made an art of being truthers.
So apparently now, according to Yahoo News, Sam Tabaridi's story here, advertisers are now planning to boycott Twitter if Elon Musk allows Donald Trump back on the platform. Whatever advertisers they have. And they do have them. Even though Twitter makes no money, they do have advertisers.
It's not profitable. I don't know if it's accurate to say they make no money.
Okay, I mean, it's not
well,
profitable.
if it's not profitable, they're not making money.
Yeah.
If
They're
they
losing.
can have revenue, but
okay.
if they're smaller than their expenses, they're losing money.
That's true.
They're paying a lot of employees, a lot of unnecessary employees. So,
and they pay them. They're crazy. They're absolutely out of your mind. You can take like a mental health month if you work for Twitter. You can just piss off for a month.
You can just not go in to work anytime you don't want to go into work, and you'll still get paid, from what some people who've worked there have said.
Which is exactly how the schools were, I found out.
With teachers,
recently.
you mean?
Yeah. Well, 10 years ago, I had I had a guy he wanted to do something with me related to the 420 rally, but he was in school and it was happening, and he said, "Oh, it's okay. I'll just throw a tantrum. They'll send me home."
So yeah, I know teachers they can build. Well, I mean, it's obviously different from different places, but teachers often because of their contracts and tenure and things like that, they can build up like sick days. So like every sick day that you don't take in a year, and you get a lot of them, you get half of that. And then there's also vacation time. If you don't take that, you get that, and it can build up, and you can actually have many months in some places of like this vacation time that you can or sick time or whatever that you could take. And then if you combine that, you can end up with like 6 months or almost like a year over many years of this time you could just take off.
Musk had already made the statement prior to the takeover. Or rather, he had made the statement. He had said he was going to fire people, and then the employees wrote an open letter.
That must have been so much fun.
Well, he's only getting started.
For a guy who's been using Twitter for a year, to actually be able to just go and fire the people who've been censoring him, God, he should have auctioned each of the people that he fired. He should have let people bid on who got fired.
Well, that would have been.
It isn't over yet. Plus, the EU is saying they're telling Musk he'll have to fly by their rules as he takes over Twitter. So already, governments
block Europe.
Their governments are flexing on him.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. Police have charged a 42-year-old man with attempted homicide after the husband of Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, was attacked by an intruder in the family's San Francisco home. Paul Pelosi is expected to make a full recovery, but was assaulted with a hammer shortly after 2 a.m. by a man demanding to know the whereabouts of his wife. The Speaker was in Washington at the time of the break-in. San Francisco Police Chief Bill Scott says officers witnessed the attack.
Our officers observed Mr. Pelosi and the suspect both holding a hammer. The suspect pulled the hammer away from Mr. Pelosi and violently assaulted him with it. Our officers immediately tackled the suspect, disarmed him.
There are reports the alleged assailant posted videos on social media questioning the outcome of the 2020 presidential election in the United States and criticizing the congressional investigation into last year's deadly assault on Capitol Hill by Donald Trump's conspiracy theory-believing supporters. In other news, Elon Musk, now the owner of Twitter, says no suspended accounts on the platform will be reinstated ahead of a meeting of a new Content Moderation Council. He said on Twitter that the group will hold widely diverse viewpoints, although he provided no further details. The $44 billion acquisition of the platform on Thursday was followed by the immediate termination of key executives, including the legal officer who approved the suspension of Donald Trump's account. ExxonMobil's third quarter profits smashed expectations and hit nearly $20 billion net. That's the highest profit in the oil company's 150-year history. From FSN's bureau in Austin, Texas, Tony Waterman with more.
Exxon's net profits were nearly triple what they were last year and came despite crude prices dipping in Q3. The company says higher natural gas prices helped to offset the losses, as did record refining volumes and rigorous cost control. But for the second straight quarter, Exxon didn't highlight its record gains, perhaps not wanting to draw the ire of the public already struggling with high inflation.
Jerry Lee Lewis has died at the age of 87.
You shake my nerves and you rattle my brain.
In 1956, he walked into a Memphis recording studio and asked for an audition, becoming an overnight sensation. His marriage to a 13-year-old cousin caused scandal in the 60s. By the time he died, he'd been married 7 times and had a love of guns, alcohol, drugs, and violence. But he continued playing and touring well into his 80s, and Elton John called him today groundbreaking and exciting, a star who pulverized the piano. Jerry Lee Lewis dead at 87. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. With just over a week to go before the COP27 climate change conference gets underway in Egypt, the UN is warning the world that there is no credible pathway to keeping global warming below the 1.5 degrees Celsius rise that is considered a key threshold. In a new report, the United Nations deemed the actions of global governments since COP26 last year in Glasgow woefully inadequate. The study came out on the same day that fresh research warned of a direct connection between climate change and worsening public health. Professor Elizabeth Robinson of the London School of Economics is one of its authors.
In highland areas of the Americas and African countries, we're finding that people already suffering from a high burden of disease now need to be concerned about the fact that these areas are susceptible to malaria. If you swim in the northeast regions off the coast of northeast the United States or in the Baltic areas, because of warming, these are areas that are now susceptible to cholera. The impact on food security is particularly concerning. And I think we've seen already this year the impact of whether it's Ukraine being invaded, whether it's cholera, or whether it's harvest shocks in the past. Each of these are having really worrying impacts on health and on food security and nutrition.
And the UN Secretary General said on Thursday the world must refocus its attention on climate change or face catastrophe. The main news again. Police have charged a 42-year-old man with attempted homicide after the husband of Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, was attacked by an intruder in the family's San Francisco home. ExxonMobil made nearly $20 billion profit in the third quarter, the highest number in the oil company's 150-year history. And Great Balls of Fire singer Jerry Lee Lewis has died at the age of 87. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
A prison reform group issued a disturbing new study this week calling conditions in women's correctional facilities deplorably unsexy. The report contends that women's prisons are bleak, dangerous environments with shockingly few soapy showers and erotically charged pillow fights. According to the Prison Justice Initiative, quote, "It's a shame that in today's society we still have jails that don't encourage kittenish girl-on-girl exploration. Prison shouldn't be a hotbed of gang violence and drugs. It should be a steamy Shangri-La where caged nymphets discover the sexuality away from the leering eyes of male society." The investigation revealed living conditions that many are calling cruel and degrading, but not in a fun or kinky way. The study's author argues that incarceration should be about more than just punishment.
The purpose of prison isn't just to lock people in a box and forget about them. It's to provide opportunities for naughty girls to play nice with each other.
Next up, a team of jock scientists have reportedly thrown the cure for asthma onto the roof of the lab. We'll talk to the nerds struggling to retrieve it.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and we're kicking off the second hour of the show. The phones are open as always. We've been talking about Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter, and not much has changed at this point. I mean, he's fired some of the boss people over there, the CEO, CFO, their top censorship advocate, are all out the door. He said that he may be firing as many as 75% of the staff. And the staff over at Twitter, some of them, I heard nobody cheering there in the background. The staff over at Twitter wrote an open letter, or some of the staff, the ones that expected they were going to get fired, wrote an open letter to Elon a few days ago saying, just begging him to keep everyone intact and don't fire a single soul because their lives, they would hate to lose their precious health care coverage, is one of the things they actually brought up in the letter. Yeah,
I'd hate to lose my precious freedom of speech, personally.
Yeah, I mean...
So he did fire people already. He hasn't done the full-on bloodletting at this point, so who knows when the axe is going to drop. As of now, it's only public that some of the executives have been canned at Twitter. So I presume he's going in there and he's interviewing people. You know, got the consultant from Office Space asking people about what they, what do they do here?
What do you actually do here?
Yeah.
It's like 90% of you guys are useless.
Let's probably spend some time trying to figure out who's worth keeping and who is worth letting go at a company that, as you pointed out, nobody has for a long time just allowed people to not work and get paid. We're going to continue to discuss that, but we do have Chuck on the line listening in Washington to K-Talks out of the Bullhead City, Arizona area. Go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, as I mentioned in our screening process there, we had Bullhead City, Arizona, within the last couple of years has adopted a anti-homeless policy, I guess you could say, resulting in the arrest of a 78-year-old woman a couple months ago in one of their parks there. I don't know if you've heard about this, but this is
another food person.
Are they forcing people into homes? That seems wrong.
No, they're arresting people for feeding them again.
Oh, that's terrible too.
Well, this is there's a couple of caveats that I think is interesting here in this whole story, because this is a policy that the Bullhead City Council adopted back in the winter, I believe, of 2020. So there's been a couple of years for this thing on the books here, and then all of a sudden this incident occurs, and there's cameras involved, and then I'm thinking there's probably been other times that this is people have been illegally fed.
Yeah, this is actually something that has gone on in various different parts of the United States for the last at least 2 decades that I've been aware of. I think it was when we first migrated here to New Hampshire back in 2006. There was something in the news in Orlando, Florida, where
this is what I was thinking.
Yeah, Food Not Bombs was the organization that was they were serving free hot food to anybody who wanted it, right, in the park. One of the parks in Orlando, and they kept on bringing cops out and arresting people for this, and new volunteers would step up. That way the same people wouldn't have to go back after they just got arrested and then get rearrested, because that usually makes your convictions a lot worse. So they kept having new volunteers step in, and more people would get arrested, and more people would get arrested. All of this just to share food with people. It's absolutely insane.
Have you checked the sold-by date on your activists? Are they getting stale?
I mean, what is the dollar amount for a local government what does that look like for their legal bill? That's a big question that I think local ratepayers and taxpayers, or whatever place that you live in that's listening to this show right now, is your local governing body considering laws like this that's going to put you in the spotlight and going to cost you a hell of a lot in legal bills and then have you a lot of PR? Here's the thing, though. They threw this out. The city of Bullhead City threw this out by, I think they call it their prosecuting attorney or their city attorney.
You mean the prosecutor declined to prosecute this woman after she was arrested, the 78-year-old woman?
This is what I'm saying, yes. And this is what's so amazing about this. I'm an outside observer of these city council people, and I'm thinking, well, what are you there for? You just adopted a policy, and now you have this bureaucrat throw it out, and because of public pressure and everything like that. What good are you for? This whole issue in Bullhead City with the simple attacking the homeless policy has the whole question of the legitimacy of their government at this point. I mean, what are they good for? But they're going to sit there and
absolutely nothing.
Yeah, this
Say
is
it
what
again.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to vote to absolve or to dissolve the organization, the bureaucrats, but I don't think I've ever seen that on any electoral.
What a surprise! They don't want to be able to dissolve themselves. I agree with you, Chuck. It definitely hurts their image. And I think that's a good thing to the extent that it hurts their image and that people look at them as a bunch of tyrants, and how awful it looks when you get video. And I don't know if anyone got video of this, but you should, if you ever see it.
Yeah, there's video out there.
Okay.
It's kind of mainstream, I guess, right now. It's on the mainstream outlets. And then there was some mention of our friends on KTOX of a caller that called in and mentioned that it was on Glenn Beck. So
okay, great.
A little bit of traction. I don't mean to do that to your program, but it has a little bit of traction. But the more amazing thing is that we've got a governing body that has these policies that they're not willing to back up, unless the national media doesn't become involved, I suppose. I mean, maybe if she didn't actually decide to sue the city of Bullhead City, maybe none of this would have been national type of discussion.
Wait a minute, she's suing them?
Yes, that's another important part of this. She's suing them for alleged violations to her constitutional rights.
Good.
Good for her.
Good, because I'm looking at a Washington Post story about this right now, and it does say here that they mention here the attorneys for the city abandoned their case against her, saying she didn't know about the ordinance, but warned her that if she returned to the park to serve food, she could no longer rely on that defense, said a lawyer with the Institute for Justice, which is, by the way, a very libertarian law firm that took up her case. And so that's good. That means she's not paying for attorneys because IJ does that stuff for free.
Yeah.
So glad to hear that. She's got good legal representation.
They do work based off donation, though.
Yes.
So if you have a chance, check out their website and support them.
ij.org. That is their website.
And for anybody who hasn't found this out the hard way, getting arrested is very, very expensive and very debilitating. And so if you haven't sent any money to your favorite jailbird activist lately, maybe it's time.
Well, especially if you're a 78-year-old woman. I mean, it's one thing to get arrested when you're in your 20s or you're middle-aged, but if you're out to the point of almost being an octogenarian, it is not easy to get.
And I think what a lot of people don't understand is often the bureaucrats will use the arrest itself as a means of harassment they never have an intention to prosecute. And the reason they do that is because every time you get arrested, you end up having to hire a lawyer that costs thousands of dollars, and then they drop the case. And it's like, I just paid a lawyer a couple $1,000s, and it's like, and you drop the case.
Yeah,
like,
they just want to get you out of there.
You don't even get your day in court.
Even if they may arrest you knowing they are going to drop the charges because they know there's no punishment for the police who do the arresting, even though later the charges get dropped. They don't charge the police officer for false charging or something like that. So they're free to go and arrest her again. But in this case, she has not gone back to the park. However, she is still feeding the homeless. She's just doing it from private property. According to the story here, she has set up at a less than a mile away from the same park, but she's on part of private property where a landowner has given her permission to be there. So she's still doing her work, which is
I wonder if that will actually change anything.
Apparently she hasn't been arrested on the private property.
Interesting, because I know.
Here's another thing about this whole thing. From what I understand, the original story that was broadcasted by KTOX, you need $1 million insurance bond if you want to go ahead and feed with a charitable organization in the city of Bullhead City, Arizona. You need $1 million to do this.
Just to feed them anywhere, even on private property?
I think it's in public park.
Okay. So that's what they're restricting. Thank you, Chuck, for bringing this out, man. I appreciate hearing from you on this. It's always interesting, these stories, and keep us up to date as it develops.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com. There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
I just heard the best sales pitch I've heard in a long time on an airplane. The flight attendant announced, "If you paid more than $75 for your round-trip ticket, you overpaid." This is brilliant because everybody on the flight paid more, and I was struck by how all the road warriors stopped typing and reading and working and looked up. The announcement invited us to apply for the airline's credit card, and the sign-up bonus, enough frequent flyer miles for a free round trip. Talk about turning lemons into lemonade. With some banks offering free credit cards, $75 is an outrage for an annual fee, but a bargain for airline tickets. For more tips on communicating more effectively, hit survivalspeech.com, where you can see how I got the CEO of another major airline to shower me with freebies. I'm Holland Cook.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. It's Ian, Chris, and nobody joining you here tonight. We were talking about the Elon Musk takeover on Twitter, and then a gentleman called in about a 78-year-old woman who has been arrested in Bullhead City, Arizona for the dastardly crime of feeding the homeless.
Somebody panic.
Yeah, apparently the police went ahead and panicked and put a 78-year-old woman in handcuffs. She said, according to the Washington Post story, she thought it was a prank. She thought initially could not believe that someone would arrest her for feeding people. And I understand, right? Like that it just does not compute. That could not possibly be on the list of stupid victimless crimes that the government enforces. I mean, we know they enforce some dumb victimless crimes and all, but usually it has to do with drugs or whatever.
That's so dumb that nobody even thought of putting it like in the Constitution as like one of your rights.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's actually one of the few government policies that I've actually changed. Was when I first went to jail in Cheshire County, they would bust you if you gave somebody else food.
Wait, what?
They would bust you in the jail for giving food away.
Sharing.
They assumed that there was quid pro quo and you were selling something.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave Rick a hard time about it several times, and he eventually got rid of the policy.
Rick Van Wickler he's retired now. He was the head boss man or whatever of the jail. What do they call it? The superintendent. That's the word I'm looking for. And he actually, to his credit, he was a member of Law Enforcement Against Prohibition while he was actually on duty there. So as far as jail guards go, he was probably the least offensive one, although still there were some ridiculous policies, and he by no means was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so like it's not uncommon for people in jail to be trading things, right? Like I remember when I was in last, I was over at Merrimack County where you were as well. Nobody, of course, we weren't in the same cell block because they were purposefully keeping us apart while we were in there.
Oh, you guys were in there at the same time.
Well, yeah, we were.
We got arrested
at the same day.
It was kind of required we be there at the same time.
I did see him at one point in the medical wing when they had me in there for observation.
Oh, you're talking about recently.
This was last year.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about.
You filmed it when we got arrested.
I'm confused. I thought we were talking about the Cheshire County.
No, you're thinking of Derek J's.
We were at first.
Yes. Okay,
but we shifted jails.
Right. Okay.
Right.
As we often do.
Right.
So
this is a great show.
Yeah, and so I was in there. We were both in the same facility. At one point, they tried to put me in one of these open wings of the jail. They have certain different types of security levels. So there was what I was in most of the time I was there was like a lockdown status. And then all of a sudden, even though I was refusing to wear a mask, I was the only person in the jail refusing to wear a mask, they tried putting me in one of these open wings where everybody's just in cots, basically. And I think you were in one of those, weren't you? Nobody?
You really weren't the only person there who was refusing to mask.
Really?
Yeah, most of us on the federal wing, for one thing, there was a lot of people on the federal wing who had no patience for COVID. And most of them thought that was among the reasons that they were arrested, because a lot of them were making noise about it. But yeah, basically, we would wear masks as beard hammocks. They would be completely, literally, I would wrap mine around my beard. Whole mouth was uncovered, whole nose was uncovered. Sometimes I had more fun with them. Like one time, every time I went back in my cell, I would pull the straps off my mask. So then I'd come out without a mask and they'd say, "Oh, where's your mask?" "Oh yeah, broke. I need another one."
So no,
and I would do that like 20 times a day.
Now, there was something different about what you did, Ian. You actually had some sort of exemption from a doctor, correct?
Well, they never, I didn't have the paperwork or anything like that, so I just asserted that I had the exemption. I told them they could call my doctor if they wanted. I don't think they ever did. And as a result, they kept me in solitary the entire time, with the exception of this one day where they moved me over to this open wing, and then they tried to tell me that if I didn't put a mask on, I would have to stay in my little cubby hole. So you had this sort of area where your bed was and you could store your personal items. But they would say, nope, you can't even walk around. You can't go and get a drink of water. Presumably you can't go to the bathroom because that's like all the way across the area. So it was a ridiculous restriction. And so, of course, I continued to not wear the mask and went and continued to do all the things I needed to do, like go make a phone call or go over to the bathroom or whatever. And so they started yelling at me, and I said, so I sent a message to the jail administrators. I said, you can't keep me here like this. I have to be able to access the phone. I have to be able to access the bathroom, and I'm not putting a mask on. So you need to move me back to where I was. And they took me out the same day. So, to their credit on that one. But I don't even know where I was going telling the jail masking stories. I've gotten completely
Well, I think
lost.
we were just kind of talking about the different experiences that you two had.
Yeah, so were you ever, you said you were in the federal block, Nobody. Were you ever in the open wing where you had like a cot, or were you in a cell at night?
No, I wasn't. I was never in there. They asked me at one point about moving there, and I looked at them darkly and said that would go badly.
Yeah. Because they don't want to have problems, right? Like ideally, they don't want to have issues between people that are going to be in these places. And when you're in one of these open wings, you have absolutely no. I mean, it's bad enough being in a jail cell with one other guy, but in these wings, the positive side is if you're more social, there's more. You can sit down and do more things or whatever. But on the
You're
negative,
not locked down in a room by yourself 12 hours.
So but on the negative side, there's a bunch of people there, and they can be annoying and they'll be loud, and it's to me, I would rather be alone with a book or something like that.
That's what I'd be thinking too.
I need my space. I didn't like solitary that much, but I could have coped with medical, because generally the people working in medical are probably going to be smarter than either the prisoners or the guards. So.
So did you say you were not in the open area?
No, he wasn't.
He wasn't. Okay.
No, I suggested that would go badly, and for some reason they believed me.
So you had a cell, but you were not alone. You had a bunkmate or something like that?
I had a cell with a bunkmate when I was in quarantine.
Okay.
Everybody had to go through 2 weeks of quarantine. It was 23 hours lockdown.
Yeah. That was me for 2.5 months.
That's got to be harsh.
I was in that for 2.5 months. All of this, by the way, for listeners just tuning in, over the Crypto 6 arrests, where we were raided at 6 in the morning.
Free Talk Live.
Yep, you can go to thecrypto6.com to watch some of the videos, see some of the footage from that raid. We're going to continue here. I've got a little bit more on the EU planning to target Twitter as Elon Musk takes over. We'll continue, and your calls and thoughts are welcome as well. It's Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. Police have charged a 42-year-old man with attempted homicide after the husband of Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, was attacked by an intruder in the family's San Francisco home. Paul Pelosi is expected to make a full recovery, but was assaulted with a hammer shortly after 2 a.m. by a man demanding to know the whereabouts of his wife. The Speaker was in Washington at the time of the break-in. San Francisco Police Chief Bill Scott says officers witnessed the attack.
Our officers observed Mr. Pelosi and the suspect both holding a hammer. The suspect pulled the hammer away from Mr. Pelosi and violently assaulted him with it. Our officers immediately tackled the suspect, disarmed him.
There are reports the alleged assailant posted videos on social media questioning the outcome of the 2020 presidential election in the United States and criticizing the congressional investigation into last year's deadly assault on Capitol Hill by Donald Trump's conspiracy theory-believing supporters. In other news, Elon Musk, now the owner of Twitter, says no suspended accounts on the platform will be reinstated ahead of a meeting of a new Content Moderation Council. He said on Twitter that the group will hold widely diverse viewpoints, although he provided no further details. The $44 billion acquisition of the platform on Thursday was followed by the immediate termination of key executives, including the legal officer who approved the suspension of Donald Trump's account. ExxonMobil's third quarter profits smashed expectations and hit nearly $20 billion net. That's the highest profit in the oil company's 150-year history. From FSN's bureau in Austin, Texas, Tony Waterman with more.
Exxon's net profits were nearly triple what they were last year and came despite crude prices dipping in Q3. The company says higher natural gas prices helped to offset the losses, as did record refining volumes and rigorous cost control. control. But for the second straight quarter, Exxon didn't highlight its record gains, perhaps not wanting to draw the ire of the public already struggling with high inflation.
Jerry Lee Lewis has died at the age of 87.
You shake my nerves and you rattle my brain.
In 1956, he walked into a Memphis recording studio and asked for an audition, becoming an overnight sensation. His marriage to a 13-year-old cousin caused scandal in the 60s. By the time he died, he'd been married 7 times and had a love of guns, alcohol, drugs, and violence. But he continued playing and touring well into his 80s, and Elton John called him today groundbreaking and exciting, a star who pulverized the piano. Jerry Lee Lewis dead at 87. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Phones are open, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here in the studio tonight, you've got Ian and Chris.
And nobody.
Nobody's joining us.
Actually, I'm not in the server. In the studio, I lied.
Nobody's here remotely. That is true. So you're welcome to join us here. The number 603-283-6160. A little bit more on the Elon Musk takeover. We talked about how he's already fired some of the top executives out there. There's apparently an advertiser boycott that is currently standing by. There are multiple advertisers saying that if Elon Musk allows Donald Trump back onto the platform, I don't think it matters whether or not Trump actually comes back, but if Musk unbans Trump's account, multiple advertisers say they are going to walk away from buying ads from Twitter. And you know what? I don't think Elon Musk cares.
Well, I don't think he cares, and I don't think he should, because
I agree.
There's not half of the country is not that Trump deranged, and the bottom line is that is just so offensive to half the country that their president and their candidate couldn't even be on Twitter, that it can't stand.
Yeah, you have to wonder if Elon Musk actually does manage to free things up a little bit on Twitter. And again, I'm not particularly optimistic that we're going to see that, but if it does happen, then he may end up getting more direct subscriptions from users than he loses in advertising dollars.
There's something to be said that advertising is not the only business model on the internet.
Right. They have a direct subscription model on Twitter. I
wasn't pay them. I wasn't aware of this, but yeah, I mean there are other business models. So it's not like it's not like it's necessarily the end of Twitter,
right?
But it's also something kind of interesting to point out. It's already a sort of a failing business model up to this point, or it hasn't been
never
successful,
turned to profit,
right?
yeah.
It's never turned to profit. So they need to try something different, right? Because if advertising isn't working, they need to somehow add some other functionality or service or something that they can actually bring in more money off of.
Geeks aren't cheap, and if they were paying, I've heard estimates saying they had 5 times as many technical people as they needed, because they didn't want them to have to work more than a couple of days a week. So it may well be that cost cutting alone would make Twitter
profitable,
productive,
that wouldn't surprise me,
combined with returning of the alienated half of the country.
Indeed.
Yeah. I'm always amazed at the amount of money that startups manage to spend, and it's like you don't even have a business model yet. I mean, I would think you should start, have some sort of idea for a business model pretty early on. But hey, I get it. Okay, you're building up your user base. You may not want to, go there yet. But yeah, it's just amazing. Lack of capital, a lot of businesses.
The thinking there, I was involved in some of the dot-com boom. The thinking there was that having a successful outing that could get the public's attention was so rare that unless you knew you'd done it, you didn't need to trouble yourself to write a business plan.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said for eyeballs. Don't get me wrong, especially when it comes to advertising. But that's a business model. So if you have no idea what you're going to do and
you don't have a business.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right.
Oh,
like
I'm
if
sure
you have,
they had ideas.
if you're just spending money.
Musk had called Twitter's Trump ban a morally bad decision and, quote, foolish in the extreme. He said in May the ban was, quote, a mistake because it alienated a large part of the country and did not ultimately result in Donald Trump not having a voice. So it sounds like he's definitely on the side of freeing Donald Trump from his Twitter dungeon. And so we'll see about that. Sorry, nobody, you were going to weigh in on something else there? Go ahead.
I was running my mouth, but I can't remember what I was saying, so
All right.
It must not have been that intriguing.
So here's the other news, and that is the EU is weighing in here, trying to threaten Elon Musk right out the gate. According to CNBC.com, a top European Union official has issued a warning to Elon Musk today about his purchase of Twitter, telling the billionaire he'll have to play by their rules. After a cryptic tweet from Musk suggesting he had completed his acquisition of Twitter, Thierry Breton, the European Commissioner for the Internal Market, warned Musk that he'll have to comply with the bloc's new digital regulations. Musk had tweeted, "The bird is freed." In response, Breton quote-tweeted Musk saying, quote, "In Europe, the bird will fly by our rules."
That's something that needs desperately to be fixed. And I don't know how to fix it except to move this kind of thing to the freaking dark web and not be so obviously present.
Yeah, I mean, and the crazy thing is, Europeans are already being harmed by all the other regulations and garbage that goes on in Europe.
I'm being harmed by them every time I go to Stack Exchange. I have to click through that damn ad, and there's no way to tell my browser this is my policy. Tell them that every single time.
Yeah, it's and that definitely came out of Europe.
The GDPR. Yep. Every website now has to make you click.
I've actually got a Tamper Monkey script that deals with some of those things now, and the name of the script is "Screw the EU."
Did you write it, or is this something you downloaded?
I wrote it. There's an extension called Tamper Monkey that lets you run some JavaScript whenever you run a page based on matching the URL of that page. So basically, I can say anytime I'm on any of the Stack Exchange sites, find that little dialog box which has class JS
we're getting too off into the weeds there, but yeah, basically what
tell it to go away.
Yeah, you wrote something specific to deal with a specific website, but it would be nice if there was some sort of a plugin that just was able to handle all of these stupid pop-ups that the GDPR is requiring all these websites to do. And the thing is,
it really should be implemented as a web proxy, so you could then use that no matter what browser you were using.
Oh, that'd be nice. Musk has, according to the story here, again taken over Twitter, been now threatened by the EU. The spokesperson for the crypto exchange Binance, which provided Musk financing for the Twitter takeover, said the transaction had been completed. Musk is one of Twitter's most popular users, known for tweeting everything from announcements about Tesla and his other companies to memes and attacks on his critics. The Tesla and SpaceX CEO has previously called himself a free speech absolutist and says he wants to reform Twitter as a digital town square with fewer restrictions on what users can say. But he's already tempered those statements by saying that you're still going to have to play within certain legal boundaries. So, obviously he's not going to get
and they will literally take the company away from them if he doesn't have some regulations on speech. We have the privilege of being small and unnoticed, but he doesn't.
Right, but what does he have to do as far as obeying the EU? Unless Twitter has an office in the EU. Good question. Can't he just basically tell the EU to go pound sand with all their regulations?
Well,
frequently big companies like that do have a presence in the countries where they do
advertising
business,
agents.
Which they really don't need. And if I were them, I would just fire their presence there and say, well, we don't market to German users, but we don't try very hard to keep them off.
I agree. We're going to continue here in moments with the threats by the EU. They've approved something called the Digital Services Act, and we're going to find out a little bit more about what that means coming up here on Free Talk Live, and you can join us.
Free Talk Live.
Group of lefties who I talked to about secession, and they were of that attitude of, no, damn it, we must take back Washington, D.C. for the liberals. And, like this constant struggle over power is what they're into. They're not into freedom. They're not into, independence or being able to decide for themselves.
They want to shove whatever their version of tyranny is down the other person's throat. Oh, yeah? You don't like Bush? Well, take a little Obama then.
Yep.
Oh, yeah? You don't like Obama? How about some Donald Trump? We'll build you a wall. And the fact is that politics, it is a threat.
Yeah.
If you don't think that Trump is a threat against your neighbor, how did you feel about Obama? Did you find him threatening? Because I can tell you gun sales skyrocketed under that guy. Can we please stop threatening our neighbors?
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. The phones are open. You can join us here if you want. You can take control of the airwaves. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Join us online anytime you want over at freetalklive.com. You can enjoy the various features that we have there for you. And also want to make sure you know about Bullion Max. So there are people that are wise enough to realize that having their value in fiat currency like the US dollar is a bad plan for the future. And a better option? Well, you should decentralize. You should diversify. You should get into alternatives like gold and silver. And BullionMax.com can help you with that. You can buy direct from BullionMax.com without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals shipped fully insured directly to your home. Free Talk Live can get you their Silver Starter Kit at employee pricing. We've talked about the Silver Starter Kit before, but it's better now than it has been because now you get a free gold back with the Silver Starter Kits. So not only do you get 5 ounces of some of the most desirable silver products to get you started on your road to collecting precious metals of various types, but you also get the amazing gold back. You get one of those for free to give you, get you familiar with what those are like and how truly amazingly beautiful they are. The offer is limited to 1 per household. So get yours now. Go to bullionmax.com/FTL to get your Silver Starter Kit. That's bullionmax.com/FTL. As we continue here, we're talking about the EU targeting Elon Musk, threatening him, saying that he's going to have to, the bird, quote unquote, will fly by our rules in Europe, they say, because Musk was saying that the bird has been freed as he took over Twitter. And EU, what do they call him? The European Commissioner for the Internal Market, Thierry Breton, initially came right out with a threat, basically. So what does that mean? Well,
in what way is Twitter internal to France or whatever?
Well, that's the question here. We don't know whether Twitter has an office in the EU. We are not sure about that. We know their head offices are in San Francisco, but there is a possibility they've got some people over in the EU, and they probably should fire all of those people and close that office. That way they no longer have a nexus there.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So one of the things that the EU tries to do with the GDPR is basically force everybody into their nexus, so to speak. If they consider you to be targeting Europe, right? And that can be as little as maybe being in French, right? Or if there's a French option, right? Or ridiculous. Having
although you could have it in French and say you were targeting Quebec and certain of the Caribbean countries.
Whether or not they would accept that or not, I don't know.
Well, what obligation do I have to show up to their court? I mean, if they want to throw a fit about it,
and that's
what are they going to do?
They probably couldn't enforce it in the United States, right? You'd have to have bank accounts in Europe in order for them to actually
they'd freeze them or whatever.
Your assets, because those judgment probably wouldn't be enforced in the United States. It's possible to enforce a judgment in the United States, maybe from Europe, but it's very difficult.
So if he's got payment processors in Europe for European credit cards or something like that
could be a problem.
He could just cancel them and say, look, Dogecoin only.
Yep.
Well, having a payment processor there also, a payment processor could be a contractor. It could be its own corporation, in which case there's going to be different rules applied to you. And I'm looking at Twitter's corporate site now. They have offices in San Fran, Atlanta, Boulder, Cambridge, Chicago, Detroit, Miami, New York, Santa Monica, and Seattle, but nothing outside the United States.
Isn't Cambridge the UK?
I'm assuming that they're talking about Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
Right next to Boston.
There is a college named Cambridge University that I believe.
Well, they're not the EU anyway, even if it was in Britain.
It seems unlikely.
Yeah, Britain is no longer part of the
EU.
of the EU. They Brexited out of there.
Yeah, I can't imagine that there's no offices there, as with the size of Twitter. But I am wondering, is there
They seem to have no offices outside the
Did you do by chance
States.
a search for like Twitter EU or something like that? Because it might just be a EU subsidiary or something like that. And
that's possible, but they may have just been being cagey because they knew that sooner or later they were going to tangle with the EU, and it's much easier to do that if they don't have any of their jackbooted thugs near your stuff.
According to the story at CNBC, under the European Union's recently approved Digital Services Act, large tech companies will be required to have robust content moderation systems to ensure they can quickly take down illegal materials such as hate speech, incitement to terrorism, and child sexual abuse. For his part, Musk has said he won't be allowing illegal content on the platform. The EU's rules are expected to come into force by 2024. Companies can be fined up to 6% of their global annual revenue for violations of the Digital Services Act.
Yeah, so
I would just provide absolutely nothing to Europe.
Yeah, I mean, so most of the
say VPN in to the United States,
right?
And you can get your Twitter from here.
Yeah, I mean, most of the problem with that list is that you end up with hate speech, and then everything that they don't like is banned.
Right.
So it never starts with hate speech or just general speech. It always starts with those others, and then that nobody's going to object to, or almost nobody's going to object to, and then it gets to something that's a code word for something else, and hate speech is a code word for some particular
disagreeing with Democrats.
Right, exactly. It's what some particular group doesn't like. So.
Curiously,
it really, I think Twitter would have been well served to start up 2 Mastodon instances, or maybe 7 of them. Maybe one for each continent, but have it be different actual companies, so they could each deal with the realities of one continent without having to worry about 7 of them.
So the EU is talking about having global anything that's connected to you effectively sales. So like, for example, if there is a subsidiary in Europe, for example, for a company, it wouldn't just and say the U.S. subsidiary violated the rules. As I understand it, I think anyway, they're saying that it would be 6% of their global revenue.
Yeah, it's huge.
So right, they're not just talking about punishing you for what you
revenue.
do. Right. They're punishing. I think they're punishing for the whole world. I mean, that's what global means.
Of course, they're going to have a hard time making that attractive if Twitter doesn't gain 6% of its non-existent, we should probably mention, profits in Europe.
That's true.
Well, remember, it's not profits, it's revenue.
You want to take 6% of my income, and I earn 5% of my income in Europe. Much easier way to deal with that problem.
That's actually really scary, because that's an easy way to shut a company down, especially a opposition, the opposition. These are the kind of tactics that like Russia, right? Putin uses against its opposition. So.
And the thing is, if you're in Europe, you can use European, I presume, social media systems, and they'll be all European for you, just the way you want them. But if you're troubling yourself to come all the way, telnet over to freaking America so you can go on an American server, then maybe what you're looking for is what's actually being offered in America. And I become more and more convinced that only the laws that cover a particular area, like you should have like one area of the world, one jurisdiction where you're at risk, but not 270 jurisdictions.
Yeah, it's insane. Just because you put a website online doesn't mean that you are all of a sudden subject to whatever bureaucrat gets a hair up his butt about you.
There's no way to comply with all of the world's laws in every country, because yes, they conflict with each other. It's like, how do you, and the crazy thing is, it's not even really just the world's laws, right? Even within the United States, like, you can't comply with every other state's laws. Like the Supreme Court, for example, is attempting to force in certain areas, like sales tax collection is a good example of that. Companies are just basically making it look like they're compliant, but they can't possibly comply.
Guy Verhofstadt, a member of European Parliament, said Friday that, quote, "The need for rules and accountability is bigger than ever." He said further, "So one man, Elon Musk, now owns the biggest debate in the world." He said in a tweet, "Self-regulation in social media..."
Is he trying to get me to eat bugs? He sounds like one of them bug-eating people.
He says self-regulation in social media has never worked, even with lesser characters than his.
Well, here's something. Here's a better comment on the situation from Ayn Rand. There's no way to rule innocent men. The only power any government has is the power to crack down on criminals. Well, when there aren't enough criminals, one makes them. One declares so many things to be a crime that it becomes impossible for men to live without breaking law.
And welcome to the status quo. There's more coming up here. Hour number 3 is on the way. This is Free Talk Live. Gold and silver. You can own the most stable assets in recorded history with BullionMax.com. Buy direct from BullionMax.com without talking to a salesperson, and your precious metals shipped fully insured directly to your home. Free Talk Live can get you their silver starter kit at employee pricing. Just go to BullionMax.com/FTL. It includes 5 ounces of the most desirable silver products plus a free gold bag. This offer is limited to 1 per household, so get yours now. Go to BullionMax.com/FTL. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. Police have charged a 42-year-old man with attempted homicide after the husband of Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, was attacked by an intruder in the family's San Francisco home. Paul Pelosi is expected to make a full recovery, but was assaulted with a hammer shortly after 2 a.m. by a man demanding to know the whereabouts of his wife. The Speaker was in Washington at the time of the break-in. San Francisco Police Chief Bill Scott says officers witnessed the attack.
Our officers observed Mr. Pelosi and the suspect both holding a hammer. The suspect pulled the hammer away from Mr. Pelosi and violently assaulted him with it. Our officers immediately tackled the suspect, disarmed him.
There are reports the alleged assailant posted videos on social media questioning the outcome of the 2020 presidential election in the United States and criticizing the congressional investigation into last year's deadly assault on Capitol Hill by Donald Trump's conspiracy theory-believing supporters. In other news, Elon Musk, now the owner of Twitter, says no suspended accounts on the platform will be reinstated ahead of a meeting of a new new Content Moderation Council. He said on Twitter that the group will hold widely diverse viewpoints, although he provided no further details. The $44 billion acquisition of the platform on Thursday was followed by the immediate termination of key executives, including the legal officer who approved the suspension of Donald Trump's account. ExxonMobil's third quarter profits smashed expectations and hit nearly $20 billion net. That's the highest profit in the oil company's 150-year history. From FSN's bureau in Austin, Texas, Tony Waterman with more.
Exxon's net profits were nearly triple what they were last year and came despite crude prices dipping in Q3. The company says higher natural gas prices helped to offset the losses, as did record refining volumes and rigorous cost control. But for the second straight quarter, Exxon didn't highlight its record gains, perhaps not wanting to draw the ire of the public already struggling with high inflation.
Jerry Lee Lewis has died at the age of 87.
You shake my nerves and you rattle my brain.
In 1956, he walked into a Memphis recording studio and asked for an audition, becoming an overnight sensation. His marriage to a 13-year-old cousin caused scandal in the 60s. By the time he died, he'd been married 7 times and had a love of guns, alcohol, drugs and violence. But he continued playing and touring well into his 80s, and Elton John called him today groundbreaking and exciting, a star who pulverized the piano. Jerry Lee Lewis dead at 87. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. With just over a week to go before the COP27 climate change conference gets underway in Egypt, the UN is warning the world that there is no credible pathway to keeping global warming below the 1.5 degrees Celsius rise that is considered a key threshold. In a new report, the United Nations deemed the actions of global governments since COP26 last year in Glasgow woefully inadequate. The study came out on the same day that fresh research warned of a direct connection between climate change and worsening public health. Professor Elizabeth Robinson of the London School of Economics is one of its authors.
In highland areas of the Americas and African countries, we're finding that people already suffering from a high burden of disease now need to be concerned about the fact that these areas are susceptible to malaria. If you swim in the northeast regions off the coast of northeast the United States or in the Baltic areas, because of warming, these are areas that are now susceptible to cholera. The impact on food security is particularly concerning. And I think we've seen already this year the impact of whether it's Ukraine being invaded, whether it's cholera, or whether it's harvest shocks in the past. Each of these are having really worrying impacts on health and on food security and nutrition.
And the UN Secretary General said on Thursday the world must refocus its attention on climate change or face catastrophe. The main news again. Police have charged a 42-year-old man with attempted homicide after the husband of Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, was attacked by an intruder in the family's San Francisco home. ExxonMobil made nearly $20 billion profit in the third quarter, the highest number in the oil company's 150-year history. And Great Balls of Fire singer Jerry Lee Lewis has died at the age of 87. And that is the latest feature story news. Simon Marks reporting.
It's the Onion Radio News. All 7 deadly sins were committed at a church bake sale. This is Doyle Redland reporting. Avarice, sloth, envy, lust, gluttony, pride, and wrath. All 7 of the fabled deadly sins were committed on Sunday at the twice-annual bake sale at St. Mary's of the Immaculate Conception Church. According to St. Mary's treasurer, Beth Ellen Coyle, church-sponsored events are a notorious breeding ground for these treasonous acts against the Lord God.
This is supposed to be about the glorification of God, not violating His word. Do that and you're no better than that cheap strumpet Melissa Wyckoff with those sinful chocolate cookies of hers.
The 7 deadly sins were first outlined in the 5th century by Gregory the Great, who himself was, as indicated by his very name, toying dangerously with the sin of pride. Doyle Redland for the Onion Radio News, online at theonion.com.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. We are kicking off the third hour of bring up whatever you want. Here in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
And Chris.
And joining us remotely, he's out there somewhere. Maybe he's not back yet. I don't know.
Nobody there?
Nobody is remote tonight. We'll have him back here shortly, I'm sure. Of course, the phones are open. The number is 603-283-6160. We're talking about the EU threatening Elon Musk, saying that Twitter is going to need to fly by their rules. And you've got some other EU-related news, Chris, that we're going to get into here in a moment. But first, we're going to go to the phones first, where Sarah is on the line in New Mexico. Sarah, you're on Free Talk Live.
Oh, yes. I've heard that Dove, Tresemme, and Suave they got caught and in trouble for putting too much benzate in their shampoos.
And what is that?
Benzate is some kind of a petroleum byproduct, and it's like a detergent, and it's supposed to cleanse. So I don't know how people got too much of it in their shampoo enough to make the news, and I don't know if they're getting sued.
Okay. So there's a lot you don't know.
So
that's what you're telling us.
Do you know anything?
Well, I mean, the people. I mean, I don't know if they got their hair. How would you detect if they have too much benzate unless they're breaking out or they're having issues in their scalp?
Well, that could have been it, right? Somebody might have had some issues, and they took it to a lab, and they determined how many benzates or whatever you're talking about were in it, and somebody complained, and now I don't know if there's some government regulator that's getting involved. It's the first time hearing of it. Sarah, where did you hear the story?
On the television news, on the evening news.
So are you like a fan of one of these products? Do you use those brands?
No, but that's the reason why I use my marketing products, because we stay away from all of this. We don't have parabens.
That's what this is about. Okay, now I understand.
Pitching the products. I got to say, Sarah, you are you're a dedicated product pitchman. You are constantly marketing your products. You are not really a communist, are you?
Well, I mean, I don't know about all of that. It's just this is the way that I believe in this company, because we have a safer for your home.
You don't get companies under communism, right?
Well, I mean, I don't know about, don't we have like a communism mixed, like socialism, capitalism all mixed together in the United States anyways?
Yeah, there's a strong argument that that's exactly what the U.S. has. But you have said on the air before that you are a communist. And you know that under communism, you don't have private companies that do innovative things and come up with really interesting products for people to use. That doesn't exist under communism, right?
Do you know what the Soviet Union did, Sarah? They copied Western like everything,
and poorly,
right? And it's the same thing with China to a large degree. They're literally just copying. And look, I'm not against necessarily copying, but there's no innovation here. They literally took the JCPenney's catalog in order to determine. And by the way,
that's how they determined prices.
Right,
was the Sears catalog.
Right. So for those who don't know, there was still there was a currency in the Soviet Union. It's just it's just that everything was government run, right? So there was a bread store, and there was a butcher, and there was
the basics. You didn't get anything special. They couldn't repair the tractors.
There wasn't three, or a dozen, different options as far as products on the shelf that you could pick from. If one type of meat you didn't like, well, that's all the meat there was.
They had the government car, and it sucked.
Oh, you didn't even get a government car. I mean, that was only for the top echelons, right?
This is what you want, right, Sarah?
I mean, it's like whether this is how the company's set up, and this is what I have to do. I mean, I'm not concerned about I'm not that particular. I'm a communist because I'm on Medicaid and I ride the public transportation.
You're not a communist, Sarah. You're not a communist if you're out there pitching a product for a private company.
Well, I mean, it's a very environmental product.
Great. I'm sure it's a wonderful product, whatever it is that you're selling. But you need to come to grips with the fact that a truly principled communist would reject any kind of private company employment and or contractor status, because that would be like, I don't know, antithetical to their belief system.
Well, I'm not that. I live in this mixed economy. So, I mean, I'm going to have to survive and adapt, but I do like the communist values of the public transportation, that it should be, that everybody should be able to ride it at a minimal cost or no cost at all.
What's that, nobody? You were trying to say something to Sarah?
Oh, she said she liked the communist values, and I said, oh, like theft? Because every time you give somebody something they didn't earn, what you miss out on is you have to first take it away from somebody who did earn it.
So you think that all the senior citizens should just die off because we should not give them nothing back because they don't deserve nothing when they get old? Is that what you're talking about?
No.
Well,
that's not what you said at all.
Deserving something, generally we have a standard of living which is called symbiosis, okay? So basically, you make yourself economically viable by providing something of value to somebody else, and in exchange for that, you get the things that are of value for you. But if you don't want to provide anything to anybody else, then the question is, well, then why should we knock ourselves out taking care of you?
Well, you're talking about all the old people should just starve and freeze to death and don't give them any medicine care.
How about not being morons and forcing them into a Ponzi scheme like Social Security, which jacks 15% of their income, and there's a wide swath of people who will never be able to invest because of that. People don't work so that unemployed bums can make the decision as to what to do with their money. People work so that they can make their own decision.
You know what's funny, nobody, is Sarah's position is more extreme than communism actually was. Under the communist system, it was the idea was the worker.
If you do not work, you do not eat.
Right, exactly. So what she's suggesting,
as Stalin said, dark humor is like food. Not everybody gets it.
Yeah. I mean, what she's suggesting is that people, old people should just be fed, independently of whether they've contributed to anything to society, which is just crazy to me.
And the thing is, most of them actually have, but the programs they get forced into are so destructive that they've wiped out a lot of the benefit they gave the world by then getting off work and voting.
Well, okay, and the humorous thing about that is it's when we're talking about pyramid schemes, people talk about Bitcoin being a pyramid scheme. Well, what do you think Social Security is? It's the people who are currently working, paying into Social Security. That's where the money is coming from to pay the people who are retired now and getting Social Security.
What happens when the people who are retired outnumber the workers?
Right, exactly. If we don't have enough workers, entering the system and currently, and that's the thing, we have a population that's getting older, and this is why Social Security is collapsing. We have a population that's getting old, and it's going to outnumber the working age population, or at least from a financial sustainability standpoint.
And basically, as soon as the young people can get out from under because they have the numbers to make it possible, that which is probably going to happen right around the time I qualify for Social Security, that's when they're going to say, oh my God, we're free, we can stop paying for this. And then I've paid into it all my life and I'll never get anything back.
Yeah. There's more coming up. Thank you, Sarah, for the call. The number here is 603-283.
Actually, I stopped paying in 2000.
6160. That's 603-283-6160. And you can bring up anything you want. Take control of the airwaves here. We have more about the EU. Chris, you have a story to share about streaming video services like Netflix, for instance.
Yep.
What's going on with them and the EU and the threats, the constant threats by the EU coming up?
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Is Free Talk Live, and you can join the show here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Just saw a chat come in on the YouTube chat. Somebody calling themselves Abandoned says some leftists are leaving Twitter for Tribel Social, Tribel Social, Tribel Social.
I wonder if it's like a Mastodon instance.
Makes
or something
me wonder
like
about that too. Yeah, we'll have to take a look into it here and see what it's all about. But of course, you can bring up absolutely anything that you want. If you want to join us online, you can. We have our own chat server. You don't have to rely on these centralized platforms. You can go to our platform that we run on our server, which is technically centralized, but it's not as bad as the big tech mega platforms. You can go to chat.freetalklive.com and you can get signed up there. Once again, that is chat.freetalklive.com. And by the way, Free Talk Live is brought to you by Bitcoin.com. So if you're ready to start learning about Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, cryptocurrency, get the basics taken care of, you can go to Bitcoin.com and click on Get Started at the top of the page. Then you'll find some introductory videos that will help clue you into some of the important concepts, some of which are going to be totally new to you if you're new to crypto. And you'll get those concepts down, and then maybe you'll feel comfortable getting into the world of crypto, like by buying your first fractional Bitcoin or Bitcoin Cash. Because remember, you don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. You can buy 1% or less if you want to. It just depends on what you are willing to put in. And, of course, you shouldn't put in anything that you can't afford to lose because there are risks involved. But at least with cryptocurrency, there's a chance that the value is going to go up over time, unlike the U.S. dollar and other government monies where it's pretty much a guarantee that you're going to lose value over time. So go to Bitcoin.com and click Get Started right there at the top of the page. We go to Major Payne. He's in Michigan. Go ahead, Major. Major?
All right. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'm here.
We got you.
I'm bumping you off a speaker.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so Ian, you, like I said, you kind of put a collection or a toll booth in the highway of life there, so I got to take a turn off into Saraville here.
All right.
Social Security is definitely a Ponzi scheme, but I'm an old man. I've been paying into it all my life. And there's actually a mathematical formula that will provide you information on whether you will profit or get screwed. But I'll give you that in just a second. Ian, you mentioned 15% of your wages go to Social Security, right?
That's actually Chris that mentioned that, but yeah,
it's something like that because it's like I think it's 7 from the employer and like 7 from the
7.5 from the employer and 7.5 from the employee, but really it all comes from the employee.
Sure.
Because they're only concerned about how much it costs to have you. They don't care if the money goes to you or to the government.
Yeah, well, the point I'm getting to, I guess, is most of my life, I've lived under the table. So I figure I've probably paid in 15% of the time. So anyway, I just hit 62, and I used this formula that my buddy told me. And basically what you do is you call into Social Security, and they'll tell you what you're worth at 62, and then at 65, I think, and then again at 67, right? What your monthly payment will be. And odds are, especially for men, most of us don't make it past 70.
Yep, not much further.
Yeah.
Right?
And they know that.
Well, yeah, of course, it's a mathematical equation.
Yeah.
These are freaking bean counters, dude.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Milton
anyway.
Friedman in Capitalism and Freedom did a great expose of Social Security. Another thing is because of shorter lifespans and because of the cap, Social Security also redistributes wealth from black people to white people.
Wait, really?
And because on average,
blacks die sooner.
Old people are actually richer than young people. The whole program robs the poor to pay the rich. You know, my parents have plenty of money. The Walgreens are getting Social Security. Why do they need a welfare program?
I told you about the 15 and 15, right? I've been mostly under the table. So I did the mathematical persuasion. And at 62, I filed. I'm only getting $344 a month. But that's
my God!
That's only a little over $4,000 a year. But if you add that up to the time I'm 67, that's $12,000. If I dropped dead in 3 years after that, I'd have lost $4,000. But there is a caveat. The first year you sign up for it, I think before 67, you can earn up to $25,000, and every $2 you earn over that, you have to pay them back $1.
Meaning you can have a job, is what you're saying? You can earn.
Yeah, you can earn money, but if you earn over $25K, for every $2 you earn over $25K, you got to pay them back $1.
Now, if you really want to blow your own mind, and I don't know how much of a masochist you are, but I get the impression there's some masochism going on. So basically, look at the pattern of how that money was paid in and when it was paid in, and then compare that to what would have happened if you'd taken the same amount of money and put it literally in an index fund, which is you're like buying the Dow, or you're buying you're buying a whole exchange. And although some companies will go up and some companies will go down, the longest time the market as a whole has gone down was after the great crash of 1928. And if you just kept your money in the market in 1928, you would have been whole in 5 years.
Yep.
Yeah, it's when people catch on fire and jump out the window that everything goes to hell in a handbasket.
Thanks, Major. Appreciate it, man.
And if you get so sick of it you can't take it anymore, it's not even legal to kill yourself.
Yeah, most places at least. That's true. Although I understand that Canada has changed that. They're actually allowing for assisted suicide, if I recall correctly, and it's actually happening at a fairly large clip up in Canada. Because, of course...
Well, the tragic thing about that is a lot of the people who are committing suicide up there, they're paying for medical care that they can't get.
Yeah,
because the government doesn't have it to give, and they can't get any medical care, so they're miserable, and so they're deciding, well, I'm just gonna end it. Which, it's people shouldn't be placed in that situation.
By the way, I did go to this tribal site, the leftist social network. It's tribel.com, and within the first 2 posts, there's an Antifa post from The Progressive that says Tribel Social has announced that it has preemptively blocked Donald Trump and Kanye West from its social network, citing their, quote, spreading of dangerous conspiracies and fake news. So, yeah, this definitely sounds like a pretty hard left kind of place. So maybe people from Twitter will migrate over there. Who knows? We're going to continue in moments, and you can share your thoughts as well. Bring up whatever you want. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Did you or someone you love work, live, or serve at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988? If you or someone you know lived, served, or worked at Camp Lejeune between 1953 and 1988 and has cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, they are entitled to compensation. To see if they are eligible, they need to call Liberty Legal. Contaminants in the drinking water have led to these serious diseases, and legislation is now available for veterans and family members who may qualify for financial help from the government. There may be a time deadline, so don't wait. Call 888-918-1037. Anyone that has lived, worked, or served at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1988 and has had cancer, Parkinson's disease, or another serious health issue, the money is already set aside. 888-918-1037. 888-918-1037.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks. Police have charged a 42-year-old man with attempted homicide after the husband of Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, was attacked by an intruder in the family's San Francisco home. Paul Pelosi is expected to make a full recovery, but was assaulted with a hammer shortly after 2 a.m. by a man demanding to know the whereabouts of his wife. The Speaker was in Washington at the time of the break-in. San Francisco Police Chief Bill Scott says officers witnessed the attack.
Our officers observed Mr. Pelosi and the suspect both holding a hammer. The suspect pulled the hammer away from Mr. Pelosi and violently assaulted him with it. Our officers immediately tackled the suspect, disarmed him.
There are reports the alleged assailant posted videos on social media questioning the outcome of the 2020 presidential election in the United States and criticizing the congressional investigation into last year's deadly assault on Capitol Hill by Donald Trump's conspiracy theory-believing supporters. In other news, Elon Musk, now the owner of Twitter, says no suspended accounts on the platform will be reinstated ahead of a meeting of a new Content Moderation Council. He said on Twitter that the group will hold widely diverse viewpoints, although he provided no further details. The $44 billion acquisition of the platform on Thursday was followed by the immediate termination of key executives, including the legal officer who approved the suspension of Donald Trump's account. ExxonMobil's third quarter profits smashed expectations and hit nearly $20 billion net. That's the highest profit in the oil company's 150-year history. From FSN's bureau in Austin, Texas, Tony Waterman with more.
Exxon's net profits were nearly triple what they were last year and came despite crude prices dipping in Q3. The company says higher natural gas prices helped to offset the losses, as did record refining volumes and rigorous cost control. But for the second straight quarter, Exxon didn't highlight its record gains, perhaps not wanting to draw the ire of the public already struggling with high inflation.
Jerry Lee Lewis has died at the age of 87.
You shake my nerves and you rattle my brain.
In 1956, he walked into a Memphis recording studio and asked for an audition, becoming an overnight sensation. His marriage to a 13-year-old cousin caused scandal in the 60s. By the time he died, he'd been married 7 times and had a love of guns, alcohol, drugs, and violence. But he continued playing and touring well into his 80s, and Elton John called him today groundbreaking and exciting, a star who pulverized the piano. Jerry Lee Lewis dead at 87. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. The phones are open. You can join us here. The number 603-283-6160 is the number. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you tonight, you have Ian.
And Chris.
Nobody.
And you can join us online anytime you want. Just head over to freetalklive.com. Tomorrow night, by the way, you'll be able to join Nobody and Captain Kickass and Peakless Mountaineer for Beard Talk Live, which is our internet-only show. Because normally we're here doing a broadcast radio show. There's certain things you can't say on broadcast radio, so we have certain restrictions.
I've said most of them.
Yeah, we have a dump machine, and so sometimes we have to use it. We don't like to use it, but we have to protect our radio stations and their precious licenses. But on Saturday nights...
At least you don't throw me out when I do it.
No. I mean, everybody makes mistakes, and that's why we have the dump. The dump is technically a throw out. We throw out the last 5 seconds, and then it's gone. But tomorrow night, we don't have the dump machine after 10:30 at night Eastern Time. We don't need it because the Beard Talk Live is an internet-based show. It's on our video streaming services. You can go to video.freetalklive.com. Follow our Odyssey channel there, and it's also on the other ones that we're on, as long as we haven't been banned from them. So if you're watching us on one of those other services, you'll see it there too. But we like to promote Odyssey because it's the most freedom-friendly platform that's out there at the moment. You can go to video.freetalklive.com to subscribe there, and then if you want to bookmark the actual live channel, it's watch.freetalklive.com. That'll be at 10:30 Eastern Time tomorrow night, Saturday nights, for I think what'll be episode 11 of Beard Talk Live. We're going to go to your phone calls, though. You can bring up anything you want here on Free Talk Live. Elijah is in Arizona watching us on Odyssey. Thank you, Elijah. Go ahead.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good. Welcome. What's on your mind?
Yeah, so I actually wanted to talk about defense spending specifically, which I know wasn't exactly the topic that you guys were discussing a minute ago. But
it's open phones, man. You can bring up anything you want. You don't ever have to apologize.
It's Free Talk Live, so
yeah.
Why not? But yeah, so me and a buddy we were talking about the unnecessary funding that goes to operations and the administration of like the DoD. And so so right now the Department of Defense is spending I think it's $1.1 trillion, or maybe it's more. I think overall it's $3.9 trillion on capital working funds and retirement programs, which is great.
That must be over a certain time frame, right? Because I think that would be the whole budget of the U.S.
Oh no, that was in fiscal year 2020, I think 3. Isn't it a year ahead each time?
Oh my God, it's that much money for defense?
Wait, how much is it?
It's insane.
Well, they say it's for defense, but they mix the offense in with that.
Sure.
True.
But he was saying 3.9 trillion. Is that what you said?
Oh yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, it's with all of the capital working funds and the retirement programs that they have all together, it's about 3.9.
Oh, retirement. Okay, wow.
Military
that's
retirement.
Crazy.
Yeah. So that doesn't surprise me. I mean, there's what's the debt currently? It's something 20. I know it was 20.
It's 31 trillion.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah, 30. It just passed 31 very recently.
Yeah, so 4 trillion. Yeah,
that's nuts.
Well, and so when we were looking into the funding, the thing that I thought was really interesting, right? Because I'm kind of fiscally responsible, kind of not. I'm kind of fiscally irresponsible. Check my checking account, you'll realize. But I saw that they weren't increasing any funds. They actually defunded some of the sexual harassment prevention programs that were implemented under the Trump administration, right? And I was kind of confused why, right? Why wouldn't the administration, quote unquote, that promotes, equality and things like that, why are they not, protecting their troops from these absolutely horrific actions, rape, sexual assault, sexual harassment, stuff like that? What do you think?
I think it's because it's always, there's been a culture of that in the military, from what I understand. And this, you're speaking to somebody who's never been in the military. I don't think any of our co-hosts on tonight have been, but you hear things from callers over the years.
I went through junior ROTC. That's the closest I came.
Did you get any kind of feel for the sexual proclivities of the people that might have been involved in that?
Well, it wasn't the same as the regular army, but they were so hard up for people to assault, they even assaulted me.
Wow. Are you saying sexually assaulted you?
Oh, come on, I'm not that bad. Yeah, I had a platoon sergeant when I was in there who was assaulting me for a short time until eventually he called me a faggot in formation, and it took the rest of the platoon to drag me off him. I damn near killed him.
Yeah, and you do hear about women in the military are put in positions where they are essentially forced to do, or they feel coerced to do, certain sexual favors for higher ups and things like that in order to move up the ranks or not be punished or whatever. So yeah, Elijah, it's just it's not a surprise that they would want to brush that stuff under the rug.
Well, I mean, if you like murder and mayhem, the army is probably a pretty logical choice for you. So it's not very surprising, I don't think.
For sure. Well, and so me and my buddy, we actually came up with this sort of theory, right? It's I think the reason that they specifically were targeting sexual harassment programs and stuff like that is just simply put, Biden loves raping children and people, so it just makes sense.
Thanks, Elijah, for the call tonight. Appreciate hearing from you. I don't know if he's right about the military budget. At least according to Wikipedia, it's saying here the 2022's budget was somewhere in the range of $700 to $800 billion. But I mean, still, that's the largest budget on the planet. It's humongous. And he did mention pensions, so maybe that doesn't include pensions.
Probably doesn't include all the pensions.
But hard to really know, right? They move money around, and
yeah, it's true.
We're not experts at this stuff. Let's go and continue here. John is
not just that, but if you want to fund something clandestinely, all you have to do is give them a little pile of money to start out with, and then tell them the day before the Federal Reserve meeting what's going to happen to interest rates, and they can clean up.
John's in Arkansas. Go ahead, John. You're on Free Talk Live, watching online.
Thank you very much. I wanted to talk about privatization, and it's really greatly affecting my community. They are starting to privatize the health care in my great state of Arkansas. And I just wanted to get you guys' opinion on privatization.
Well, I guess we're going to have to hear more from you about what exactly you mean by privatization, because as I understand it, Arkansas doesn't have a government monopoly over healthcare, do they?
It's in my state, or it's in my county. They decided that a company should decide whether or not our prescriptions should be allowed.
Okay, I'm not really. So you're saying that the government ran healthcare in your county in Arkansas?
No, I'm saying that a company is running our healthcare.
Right, but normally when you use the term privatization, it means that you're taking
about company control.
Well, normally the definition of privatization, and if you want to hang on, we'll continue the discussion with you.
What exactly does the company do to prevent you from getting some procedure that they don't agree with?
Well, we're going to bring John back on here in a moment to have a longer discussion about this, because I don't know if I think we all need to find out like what everybody thinks the word privatization means, because I think there's a serious miscommunication going on here. Normally, privatization...
Well, it's a bad word because it assumes that everything is just naturally under the control of government, and anything that you can actually make decisions about has been privatized.
Yeah, I don't care for the term either, but normally the circumstances it's used is when there's a government monopoly and then some government or some private entity, some private company has handed the control over what the government monopoly had control over. So then you now have a private monopoly having control over that thing.
Sounds about right.
That was granted by the buddies, their friends in government. So it's not really much of an improvement in most circumstances. It's not a free market, but it's not really clear exactly what John is referring to in Arkansas. So we'll see if we can get that cleared up. It's Free Talk Live. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com.
There are basically two types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
As if Amazon Prime wasn't worth it just for the free shipping and hundreds of movies, thousands of TV shows, and millions of songs on Alexa, I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. Browse Amazon Warehouse for deeply discounted open box deals on computers, TVs, unlocked phones, lots of returned merchandise, and Amazon Renewed sells refurbished merch. In both cases, like new, and guaranteed replacement or refund for 90 days if your purchase doesn't work as expected. I could not tell that several refurbished items I've bought weren't new. Manufacturers like Apple and Samsung also sell refurbs on their own websites. Most come with a new battery, and they carry a 1-year warranty, so they're new to you. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Phones are open here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Moments remain, maybe enough time to get you on the line here with us. Tonight it's Ian, Chris, and nobody here in the studio. We have a gentleman on the line. He's still there. John in Arkansas. We're going to bring him back here in just a moment. But don't forget, you can join us on our social media site, which is social.freetalklive.com. We run our own Mastodon server. You can interact with the other Free Talk Live listeners and some of the hosts of the show, and it's, of course, completely free. It's open source, self-hosted, it's federated, so it's connected with other Mastodon servers all around the internet, and it's pretty cool because you can actually download different, you can do it on the web, of course, but you can also download different apps for Mastodon because, again, it's open source, so anyone who wants to program an app for Mastodon can do that. So there's a bunch of different options from which you can choose. And I do want to say thank you to Scott, who's a Free Talk Live supporter of our AMPS program. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. Scott is helping us get the ideas of liberty out there as far and as wide as possible, and we definitely appreciate the support. As we get back to your calls here, we have John still on the line in Arkansas. John, you were talking about privatization, but I don't know if we all really agreed on the definition of that. So can you explain your understanding of what that means?
Well, privatization is a control of the company that the government chooses, but I think you might be thinking of nationalization, where the government controls healthcare or the government controls the railway systems.
No, I was thinking of privatization, and your description is fairly accurate. It's where the government turns over operation of some sort of government monopoly to a private company. But what you were saying was you were having some sort of healthcare privatization situation in your county in Arkansas, and I guess it's not really clear. What do you mean by that?
Well, the government is trying to privatize Medicaid in my county and all over the state.
I see. So, of course,
this is really... You go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that the best answer, of course, is to abolish government's programs entirely and allow an actual free market in healthcare where people can provide services at whatever level they want to. They don't have to ask permission to, offer healthcare services. They don't have to get government licenses, jump through arbitrary hoops, pay ridiculous fees. I mean, the government, the federal government especially, increases the cost of healthcare dramatically through all of its regulatory schemes, things like Medicare and Medicaid.
I'm not even sure how that would work, given it's a federal program in the first place. So how would the county take it over?
Well, the county is voting on whether or not a hospital should be able to privatize it.
Sounds like they're going to allow a private agency to administer whatever county level goings on have to do with it.
I don't know enough about it to.
Yeah. Again, getting out of
Have a conversation, really.
out of the federal government, secession, these are all solutions here because the feds are just going to try to centralize this stuff more and more. I'm not a fan of privatization because it gives you a new private master that's government approved. I don't want to see one size fits all. I don't want to see a monopoly. Did that answer your question?
You want
John?
a free market, not privatization.
Yeah. Obama was really the person that started this massive corporate scheme with universal health care. I don't want Jeff Bezos controlling my everyday life. I have the freedom to do whatever I please.
As you should. And
you
I
work for Amazon, or
I don't know. Thank you, John, for the call tonight. I appreciate it. I don't want Jeff Bezos controlling my healthcare, and I don't want Obama, and I don't want Trump, and I don't want Biden. I don't want any of those people being able to make those decisions. Let's go to Richard. He's calling us from...
Hell, I'm so cursed, I don't even want Alexa listening to my conversations.
Indeed. Richard, you're calling from somewhere. What's on your mind tonight?
Hello?
You're on the air.
All right. My name is Richard. I'm from Florida.
Yes, sir.
And I just...
Florida man.
I just wanted to talk about gun violence in America.
Well, here you are. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Right. So it's crazy to me. It's really crazy to me how liberals will go on and talk about how we need the assault weapons ban and all this stuff. It makes no sense to me because we have cities like Chicago and Los Angeles, and it's just not working. It's not working how these liberals say it should. And
of course not.
I just want to know what y'all's take on it is. What do you believe? Our standard should be when it comes to assault weapons and banning them.
Well, there should be no bans. I mean, in a free world that I think the people on this radio show support, then you should be able to get anything that you want to be able to buy. The government bans, as you point out, don't work. All they end up doing is restricting law-abiding people from owning things that they could defend their business or defend their families or total strangers with. And the criminals, of course, continue to have the weapons. So that's why you're seeing the tremendous gun violence that you see in Chicago. But I suspect you already knew that, right, Richard?
Biden will not take my guns.
Who? Oh, Biden. He said Biden.
Oh, Biden
will not take his guns. All right. Well, I hope not. I really do. Let's go to an anonymous call.
Maybe they won't. I mean, Chavez confiscated the guns from everybody, but then when the opposition started getting a little uppity, he rearmed his side and kept their side disarmed.
That's right. Let's go to an anonymous caller calling from somewhere. You're on Free Talk Live. Hello, anonymous caller. You're on the air, going once, going twice. Sometimes we get a group of, let's call them troll callers calling Free Talk Live. And I got to say, I appreciate this group of them because did you notice they all kind of had a similar sound to their voice?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I don't think it was the same person.
It was a little different than normal troll callers, though.
They weren't as childish. Like, they didn't just try to say the F word on the air. And I appreciate that because it means I don't have to use my dump machine. So if I don't have to use the dump machine, I'm happy. Because I don't like having to take people's words off the air. It's like it hurts me to have to do that. So thanks, guys, for doing that. But I always find myself wondering, like, who are they, right? Because every now and then we've had this happen, and we've managed to find out, like, what internet forum they're hanging out on or what chat room or whatever. Here, we got another one calling in here. Who's this? You're on Free Talk Live. Hold on, nobody. Hold on. We got somebody here.
Find some people who disagree to debate.
We got somebody here. Go ahead. Who's this?
Hi, this is Frank from Louisiana. I just wanted to tell you guys are doing a great time tonight.
Frank, where are you listening? How are you part of this group that's calling in? Be honest.
Absolutely.
It's okay.
You're absolutely not?
Absolutely not. I just got here. I saw the number on the screen, and I just wanted to talk a bit because we got to talk about everything that's going on in our country right now, especially with this whole, the current situation with Kamala Harris.
What is the situation with her besides her being a scumbag politician?
I mean, you got to understand this. This woman don't do nothing for our country. I mean, she sits around in her big old office. She don't do nothing. When's the last time you seen Kamala Harris in public? I just want to bring it up.
I mean, when does any politician ever do anything?
They do everything for themselves, right? Like they're in it for them. All of them are, whether it's Kamala Harris or the next Republican or Democrat or whatever. They're all scum of the earth.
Now that's not fair. If you're a crony, they'll do a lot of nice stuff for you.
That's true.
I gotta say this.
Yeah.
Listen, when Trump was in office, we had the largest job growth in American history, and we saw a lot of good stuff happen when Trump was in office.
Not so much, though. I mean, the government just got bigger. I mean, the government did not get smaller, right? Taxes and spending did not go down. There's no...
I didn't forget that 25% tariff he instituted under Trump.
Our freedoms were valued when President Trump was in office. Yes,
that's just mythology.
I mean, they were valued by me, but it didn't stop them from throwing me in jail.
What exactly do you mean by that?
Did you hear that? Nobody? He said, "What do you mean by that?"
Oh, well, they have these guys named cops, and they drive tanks into your houses and drag you off to prison. I don't like them.
I wish we had more time for you, caller. Unfortunately, you called in at the very end of our show, but don't worry. We're going to be back tomorrow night for more Free Talk Live, and then we'll have tomorrow night also Beard Talk Live at 10:30 Eastern Time. So you get 3 hours of us on the radio, and then I think most Beard Talk Lives have been about 3 hours long as well. And of course, there's no commercials during Beard Talk Live. So we're talking about like a 6+ hour long block of talk radio content that starts at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday nights. It's pretty epic. So if you guys are new to the show, if you're a brand new listener, definitely come in, tune into us tomorrow night, anytime between basically 7 p.m. and like 1 a.m. Eastern Time, with the latter half of it being completely uncensored, no FCC, no pesky dump box. So thank you to all of our new callers here tonight, and thank you to you guys for being here as well. It was fun. It
was a good time.
Thank you.
And look for Nobody tomorrow night at Beard Talk Live, 10:30 Eastern Time, at our video channel over at video.freetalklive.com. And of course, we'll be on all of our normal places starting at 7 p.m. Eastern tomorrow for the next episode of Free Talk Live on the radio and elsewhere. See you tomorrow.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Have you had enough of the big-name web hosting services that are long on promises but short on bleeding-edge features, uptime, and customer service? Try Agorist Hosting, the agile web host that offers full concierge service from website redesign, full e-commerce solutions, custom apps for your Shopify store, IPFS integration, and more. Agorist Hosting is ready to take your web presence into the future. To get started, head over to agoristhosting.com.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire.